going to try plugging it into the PC and see if that makes a difference. Okay. There we go. We're up. And that was it.
We've got to move the PowerPoint.
You don't have it on a phone already?
Is it there? Okay, give it a second.
Yeah, I'll see if their Mac needs an update. Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're fine, I got it.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Yeah, you had a hotel. Basically, it's going to be kind of in a dormitory. It's counterintuitive to what we're doing.
Starting the Tourist Development Council meeting August 2nd at 9:02. And if you would, please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Our Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance today for this board as we work together with our community, businesses, and tourists to accomplish our goals to the benefit of all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if everyone would put your phones on silent or turn them off, please, for the meeting. And let's see, roll call. We got Jim Richard, Pam Avery, Ryan Christensen,
Here.
Gary Brillmeyer,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson, Matt Hayden,
Here.
Richard Bellman, Mark Hodgson,
Here.
Tim Norris, present. We have a quorum. All right, first off, we'd like to start with Jay Tusa. Y'all make sure your microphones are on too.
Good morning, council members.
Morning.
Morning.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning. Just real quick, I wanted to take an opportunity, since we'll have some new employees presenting at the meeting, I wanted to take the opportunity and introduce them at the beginning of the meeting rather than at my updates at the end of the meeting. So just real quick, and then we can carry on. Our new Director of Marketing, Mike Kerrigan. And I think he's kind of gone around and met a bunch of you and also the different committee members. So he's been hitting the ground running as the new Marketing Director. Also, our new graphic designer, Courtney Wimmer. Did I pronounce that right, Courtney? Wimmer. Okay. And then Christine Packer, our new Community Relations Specialist. And Christine's been also getting out and meeting a bunch of people with her new role with community relations. She's just really been out there in the community, and I've gotten some good feedback from our community on her already. So that's great. And then working with Jason Cutshaw in the administration department, our administrative specialist, Cindy Self. Where's Cindy? There's Cindy. So anyway, just wanted to take a moment and introduce those folks, and we can get started with the rest of the meeting now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jay. And welcome, everybody. All right, let's see. First on the agenda, any public comments before we get started? None? All right, at this point, let's see. Let's go to the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Got approval. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, financial report. Jason?
Yes, sir. Good morning, council members. Jason Cutshaw, the Director of Administration. You'll see in your packet the May financial report. Real quick, because we're at the very first of the month, June's financials won't come out for about another week. As soon as they come out, I'll put those together and email them all out to you, and they should be up to date and official. 67% through the year in May. Our highest category spent is product development, and that's equipment at 69%. The reason is shoulder season marketing and equipment is ordered at the beginning of the year, so a lot of times we spend that fund first. You'll see land purchases. Further down in categories, you'll see two categories, land and Deepwater Horizon. Those are money that's been moved from reserve into for land purchases, so you'll see it go in and then come back out for the land purchases. Operating supplies and code enforcement is at 84% because of equipment to uniform for the new code enforcement at the beginning of the year. So that's a category that'll be spent relatively at the beginning. In May, our reserves is slightly down because of land purchases, but we still have a total of $33,454,977 in reserves. Our next slide was be the May TDT report for the month of May.
Jason, did you
Yes,
say
sir.
23 or 33?
33, sir, total.
I'm sorry.
33 total.
33.
Yes, sir.
That says land purchases out by there, Jason,
Yes, sir.
but that's actually what we have left in the.
Yes, sir. In the far right side, I can't really point with the pointer because it won't show up. In May, you'll see that's what we have total remaining in it. But that's not reflected of the $4.2 million that we just spent at Amalfi or the $1.5 million. So that's not reflective yet because these numbers are from May.
Okay,
So it hasn't been pulled out yet.
thank you.
You're welcome. The May TDT report, we are up. It's we had $2,217,959. That was 7.08% above last year. Year to date, we're at $9,623,406. That's 11.25% higher than this time last year. So we're staying about $1 million above year to date than we did last year. So that's a great thing and good reflection of a lot of things working well. June numbers again will come out on the 4th, and I'll send them out as soon as possible. So, is there any questions on the May report?
Nope.
Okay, sir. All right, so this will be the only one we'll approve on. So once the June comes out, next month we'll have 3 basically months that we'll be approving on next meeting.
We've had a busy summer too,
We
so I'm
have.
sure it's going to be some big numbers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So if you guys, I'll move, once you guys go through and approve on those, I'll move on to the Maxima study with just an update.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the financials?
So move. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you. FY18, the county, on the Maxima study, in FY18, the county will conduct another research study. And the big goal on our end is to make sure that we're there and available for them. So when the county reaches out to a third party, we'll be there beside them to talk to them or spend time with them and give them any information that they may need. Up there, I put a copy of the Auditor General's report and a response. It's a single piece of paper. It was adopted on 6/20, so it was after our last meeting, so I wanted to make sure everybody had a copy of that. And it basically, the Auditor General's office only recommended that the BCC adopt written policies or procedures for calculating indirect admin charges to the TDC based on actual services. So they use the same methodology, the double step down method that I explained last meeting, and basically that the Maxima study applied. And I sent the email out recently to you guys to kind of give you another example of the double step down methodology, how that fair charge happens. And there's also a link on there if you guys needed to go down and read the whole report. So it's on there. They put it onto a share drive so you guys can access that anytime. That way, too, if you ever have a question or anything else, please reach out to me. Yes, sir.
So what we need to do here is we have, we're at the end of the contract, basically.
Yes, sir.
So we need to approve, or we need to move on this particular Maxima study. So what are we looking at doing on this?
It's really just, it was more of an update, and I mean, Clay, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was more of an update. This is what the county was told by the Auditor Generals
Right.
they needed to do. So here's what they've done, and here's a copy of what they've done and shown, that was adopted on 6/20.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we are more involved next
Yeah.
time instead. I think the report last time was, didn't have as many TDC members interviewed. So it would be nice to have that part of that process, so.
Absolutely, and then FY18, we
Director.
got that chance to be able to do that.
Yeah,
so.
all right, thank you.
Sure, yes, sir. Oh, I went too far. Contract renewals is the next section. We've got 4 contract renewals that'll be coming up very soon. That's Turner Public Relations. That's our PR firm. This will be their first renewal underneath that contract. Burrell Services, which is our media monitoring, press clippings, our copyright protection company. That will be their first renewal. Heffley and Associates, that's our federal and state lobbyist. and Miles Media, which is our web platform building and hosting. This will be their second renewal, so after this renewal, then it'll be open again to put RFP out for that next year. So those are the ones we have coming up relatively soon. And if you guys need any copies or anything else, any of the contracts, I'm more than willing to email them out to you. And that's it.
That's it.
Me, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And Mr. Tuso.
Good morning again. So, Visit Florida. We've talked about this in the past, I don't know, 4 or 6 months now. And so at the end of May, beginning of June, the legislature had a special session regarding Visit Florida and their funding. And so the outcome of that special session was full funding for Visit Florida in the amount of $76 million. But with that funding came some new parameters on how DMOs, the TDCs in Florida, can work with Visit Florida and what their responsibilities are as part of the membership. So our membership was due for renewal at the beginning of July. And so with these new parameters that are now put on place, I thought that it would be prudent to bring that forward to this board and let it decide how we want to move forward with Visit Florida because of these new parameters that are put in place. So you can see here, there's a few things here that are mentioned. So new regulations on Visit Florida require partner entities that receive more than 50% of its revenue from TDT funds to report additional financial data. And here's the information they're looking for. Salaries of employees and board members, which that's not an issue. And the salary for board members is only if you're paid as a paid board member. So that's not, if you're, like in your guys' case, since you're not paid to be on this board, then that would not be a requirement. So I want to be clear on that so you understand.
Can we be paid?
Can you be paid? Thank you for your service, Richard. We appreciate it. Okay, so operating budget of the partner entity, and then funds expended by the partner entity on Visit Florida's behalf, and then travel and entertainment expenditures. So a couple of those items in particular, you know, for a DMO, this is kind of echoing a little bit, maybe step back a little. Can you still hear me? A couple of these items, the operating budget and then the information that needs to be presented as far as what we're doing raises a little concern in my thought, in my mind, of having this information so publicly out there. I mean, obviously we're a public entity, and you know, information is readily available through public records requests, which we do get, by the way, from our neighbors have done public records requests on sales and marketing plans and those type of things. So that's not beyond the realm of possibility that people would do that. But it's just a matter of how easy do we want to make this information available to our competitors. And so anyway, I just thought that it'd be prudent to bring that to this council, and I thought it was a decision that was bigger than mine to make. And so brought it here today. We can discuss it and see how we want to move forward, if we do want to participate with Visit Florida or if we don't. I will say one thing as far as the programs that we participate in Visit Florida with, we can do those programs on our own. We have reached out to the advertising folks with the different magazines and publications and digital, and all those opportunities that we get through Visit Florida, they'll offer us those same opportunities. So as far as that goes, we're not really losing anything from a marketing capability. You know, it's probably some things with networking that, you know, because with this, we couldn't even go to a Visit Florida conference, because if we do that, then that counts as being a partner with Visit Florida, and then we would have to disclose that information. So it goes that far. So anyway, if there's any questions I can answer, we can kind of have a conversation about it.
Jay, two things. What does it cost to belong?
It's a $6,000 membership, and then the conferences and things like that, it's probably about $25,000, and then we spend about $250,000 on the various media buys that we do at Visit Florida.
All right. The second question I have is, what does it bring to the party? Do we have any data, any statistics on what Visit Florida's impact is on Multnomah County?
Well, I think it's segmented. I mean, because obviously you have the visitor center component, which honestly, I don't think that's a real draw for us. I don't think we're getting anything from that. I think from the marketing side of things, I do think that there's some benefit to that. But like I said, I think that is something that we could do on our own, so I don't think we would lose that. There are some things on the sales side where with those sales efforts, there's a couple of shows that we would not be able to participate in because those are Visit Florida driven. And then some of those are co-opt, and so we could still participate with those other agencies, but that doesn't go through Visit Florida. So all in all, I don't think we'd lose much. I think probably the biggest thing would be the sales shows that we participate in through Visit Florida, the ones they have created and that are Visit Florida branded, if you will.
Thank you, Jay.
Individual business entities can still operate with it.
I understand that.
Co-ops and stuff.
I understand that.
That is correct. We did double check that because at the marketing committee meeting there were some questions on that, and we did double check on that. And so if we chose not to participate with Visit Florida, certainly all of our industry partners here could still participate with Visit Florida. So if you wanted to buy in over at Sandestin or the Hilton, then you would certainly have that opportunity to do so.
Is it my understanding that we have to put our information, our plans and everything on the...
What we have to do is we have to compile a report, and in that report we would have to send it to the governor, the Senate, and the House, and then we'd also have to post that on our website for the public to view.
And we currently don't have to do any of that.
We currently do not have to do that. No, sir. So, and then as far as, Clay, do you want to talk a little bit about some of those things?
Yeah, let me address that and go beyond that. Jay asked me to look at this, certainly after the legislature enacted this following the special session. All of the tourist development councils, DMOs, related entities around the state got a general letter. I believe FADMO asked Osley McMullen, a law firm in Tallahassee, to write. I reviewed that opinion letter and all the attachments. We're talking about a 100-plus page document for us. I generally concur with the opinion, which is this. The legislature's goal was to create a greater deal of transparency with Visit Florida than what had occurred before. I want to be upfront and very clear with this council, as well as for the public who may be watching or go back and listen. We already are under many of those transparency requirements due to Florida's public records law. When you look at what we post online already, we comply with almost all of those provisions. The difference was Visit Florida did not necessarily have to abide by all those, and perhaps did not abide by all those would be the argument that some of the legislature made. I'm not going to weigh in on whether that's accurate or not, but that's what precipitated this requirement. The general opinion of most TDC attorneys that I've spoken to, as well as consistent with Osley McMullen opinion, was the fact that the language about posting your operating budget and the posting the detailed line item expenditures goes well beyond a line item budget or a line item expenditure that you approve. And I know each of you has had the opportunity to review our finances, you review our marketing plans, you see what we get, and it's very detailed. Arguably, that would be not detailed enough for the state. So the question becomes for us, what is our cost to engage in this? And one of the things that Jay and I discussed, and I asked Jay to pull me some information on, was what he's already told you. In the last year, we spent roughly $250,000 related to Visit Florida. $23,000 of that was directly to Visit Florida. The other $225,000 of that $250,000 number were ad buys that we could do ourselves. So the question is, are we going to spend $23,000, if I were to give you, I think, what a simple decision point is, to participate with Visit Florida? Do we know that we're getting $23,000 worth of effort back? And is it going to cost us more than $23,000 in direct or indirect administrative costs to either change our reporting or up our reporting requirements? The intangible side that I'm going to completely defer to Jay on, it's not a legal question, it's a policy question, is the strategies we've developed, the strategies we've implemented. And I think Jay has been very candid, I think as his board will. We've been successful as a TDC in many regards. When you look at region-wide instances, I know some of you are here during the BP oil spill, we saw great return on our investment with those dollars. Everybody got the same pots and rules to play in, and we were more successful. Now, maybe that's Walton County getting the benefit. Maybe it's the way we did it. The point being, in a competitive market, the intangible is, do we give away a competitive advantage that we might have to publish that? I don't know that we have that answer. I will say this. As your attorney, what I told Jay is, I would be remiss if I cautioned anything other than disclosing above and beyond what is suggested we disclose. I think everybody who's going to participate with Visit Florida this year is going to be in a position where they're going to need to go above and beyond on the production of these documents. One of the things that hamstrings us, as many of you know, is the simple rules that have always been in place that prohibit us knowing a lot of data about our bed tax collectors. We can do cluster analysis. We collect this zip code, that area, but breaking down who our big bed tax collectors are, how we spend. That type of data is probably getting to the granular level that's expected of us. So I have a very real concern about whether or not we or any other TDC can actually comply with the level of disclosure that's going to be expected right now. Perhaps some private agencies that do not fall under the same rigidity may be in that. Perhaps agencies that are funded in part by TDT tax as well as other private funds would be better suited to do that. For us, I remain concerned about that. Now, in a year, you may have this back in front of you with the same request. And in fact, I've already told Jay, I would think for the first couple of years while we see what happens with Visit Florida, the legislature went from cutting Visit Florida way back to putting it back in. Who knows where it is next year? The question is, what reporting changes? What are we going to put on our staff and our team to do that? Nothing that you see up there, I want you to understand. I believe if you go down the itemized list, I believe it's A, B, C, and E. We already do them full. There's no question. It's the question of the line item, expenditures line of how we do our ad buys that I don't know that we're able to comply with, or that anybody's going to be able to comply with when the legislature comes out and says, this is what we expect Visit Florida to show and anybody working with them. I do not believe the intent ever was to make it harder on TDCs. And if you look at the committee analysis, which I've gone back and done, and it's part of that packet that Owsley McMullen reviewed, the language in the bill does not address some of the very specific concerns that both the House and Senate brought up about the effect on local entities. Will that get changed? I think that's a fair bet that once they start seeing how it's implemented, that's going to be a call. But for us, when Jay asked me to approach it, he said, how much further are we going to go? I couldn't in good conscience recommend to Jay that we take the approach that some of our fellow entities have done, which is they've gone out and engaged Owsley McMullen or other large law firms in this state or in the Southeast to provide them their own specific detailed opinion. I will not name specific counties, but I will say one of them has endeavored that process, and halfway into it's already been told, you understand that ultimately we're just going to build this out for an Attorney General opinion because the Attorney General is the one you really need to ask. I can give you my opinion, which is you're going to have to comply with everything Visit Florida does, which is more intensive than we do. I believe that. I believe that's the current opinion of Owsley McMullen. If you want a line item by line item what's acceptable, I likewise agree with the opinion that some groups are receiving back. The AG is going to have to answer that, and I don't know that the Attorney General is going to do that county by county, and I don't know that they're going to do that within the year. So at some point it's a time and cost allocation for us, and we are all very sensitive, I think, to cost allocations and time allocation studies, having gone through it with Maximus. So from a legal perspective, I can tell you the statute is imposing new requirements that are more burdensome than we've already dealt with. If there's a benefit to staying with Visit Florida, and I'm not saying there is or there's not, maybe that's something that staff needs to quantify for us. I think that's one of the questions that's already been asked. The problem is, Jay said, look, I've got to make this call on starting to write checks right now, 8 days after the legislature passed this. And so I will be very candid. I told Mr. Tusa that in his capacity as the executive director, that I believed he had the authority to decide to proceed or not proceed pending our next meeting with the TDC, and the TDC should ultimately make that call from a policy level, and understanding the BCC may ultimately get to make the final call. My understanding of Mr. Tusa was he wanted to stop that at this time until he could advise you what the additional hurdles would entail. The hard part is, and I apologize to this board as well as I'm sure as Mr. Tusa and our staff does, Nobody can give you a concrete answer today, and I don't know that in 6 months we can give you a concrete answer on exactly what the different levels of reporting are going to require. We know when you look around the state that there are no less than 5 different models. Some are just going with the approach, we're going to provide what we already apply and hope that's good enough. If it's not, we're going to be in for a lot of scrutiny and a lot of issues. And I don't know that we want to bring that on us. So that's why we have to hand it to you and say the law has imposed additional requirements. Is it worth us going forward? And ultimately, that's a policy question. Jay and I have talked about what it would take to take steps beyond what we already do to try to shore up what reporting would look like if you tell us to proceed. And I'll let Jay weigh in unless something has changed. His conversation with me was we could probably implement some of those immediately. But it's not going to be an overnight change. Here we go, we're in something different. It's going to be an evolving process of how we put this together. And it's certainly going to involve our staff putting together documents that we have never in the past released and have never in the past under Chapter 119 been required to release. So that's your update. I'll be glad to answer any other questions you have from me today, or if you want a more detailed analysis, I'll be glad to provide you one of those. And I'm certainly glad to provide you the Owsley McMullen letter that's the overview of that if anybody really wants that kind of bedtime reading.
So, Jay, I have a few questions. So am I hearing right that our total cost savings by not re-enlisting with Visit Florida would be approximately $6,000 a year on membership plus $23,000?
Yeah, well, that's about what we spend directly with Visit Florida on their different like their meetings, like they have their governor's conference, they have their board of directors meeting, they have obviously the membership fee. So those type of items are about $25,000. And then the media, obviously, if we're going to go out and place that on our own, we'd still be spending those dollars.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have we put pen to paper to see what the cost of the additional admin might look like if we were to join and have to comply?
We have not done that, and I mean, obviously, depending on the direction of the board.
One staff person too.
Well, and I think it goes beyond just our staff. I mean, as Clay mentioned, I think we might have to get the clerk's office involved in that as well. And so I'm not sure what that would take on their part. I mean, it's certainly something that we can look into.
But it's going to be additional.
It would definitely be some additional time on our end at the TDC, and then I'm not quite certain what it would be on the clerk's end. That's something that I'd have to get with them on.
And have any of the marketing professionals weighed in on really what we're losing by not affiliating with them in terms of their reach, broadly, nationwide, regionally?
Well, I did talk to the marketing team, and we really feel from a marketing perspective that we really wouldn't lose anything because we would still be able to participate in all those Visit Florida buys, just separate on our own. Okay. So we still have the reach through those various publications, those outlets that we would have, whether we're participating with Visit Florida or going out on our own.
So if we decided not to enlist this year, could we just simply rejoin next year if things
absolutely. I mean,
get better?
Well, I mean, even if in 6 months, if we decide not to proceed at this point, and even in 6 months, we say, okay, you know what, we're reversing that decision and we're going to join back up. We could do that in 6 months. We could do that next year. There's no time constraint on that. So whenever we feel if we want to jump back in, we can jump back in.
Okay. Just one quick question to clarify. Mr. Atkinson said that I have a little concern about if we were to rejoin, we can fully expect or anticipate, this is a question, not a statement, that at any time the legislature could come back, change the rules, make them harsher, make them stricter. Is that a correct assumption?
That is absolutely a correct assumption, and I would expand on that briefly, Mr. Veltman. I have at this point in time, and just an observation, and so I mean, I think each of you probably are well aware of how the legislature handled Visit Florida, and I think we'd all be completely erroneous to try to read tea leaves about what's happening with Visit Florida in the future. There's no answer to that. But I would suggest to you that the changing of the rules is probably going to be less at a legislative function immediately. I think the next question with Visit Florida is going to be the same question that was this year. There appears to be no staff analysis occurring of how this is implemented at the local level, at the legislative committee level. It doesn't appear that's their focus. The focus is whether or not Visit Florida is a sustainable organization they wish to fund, same way they approached Enterprise Florida. It appears those may be on divergent tracks. I think what you're going to see are any court cases that come out challenging this. I think you're going to see Attorney General's opinions. I think you may well see Auditor General opinions, but I think you could see a number of regulatory and executive branch level opinions, and possibly even the judiciary, weighing in on how this is implemented at Visit Florida. And what happens at Visit Florida then down the line to us is where you're going to see that. So the big question is not just the legislature changing it, it's that we could be operating under a set of rules today that we believe we are fully complying with, only to be told in 6 to 8 months that no, it meant something more than that. And so my advice to Mr. Tusa was that unless he was completely confident that we could provide the level of reporting that Visit Florida itself has indicated they will provide to the legislature and on their public transparency level, if we can put all that together, and frankly, they haven't even said exactly what that's going to look like. They've talked in broad strokes, that it is very dangerous for us to proceed at this point in time when in reality, what you're giving up is the $23,000 to $25,000 payments there, and we can't quantify what that gets us, but we could still spend the $250,000 or $225,000 elsewhere with understanding that's there. It may well be that once these policies are clarified, getting back in makes sense. But until it's clarified, I think everyone has heard me say many times before, I have no problem going to argue a unique legal position for Walton County on anything that's untested. That does not bother me. But I hate to see my governmental clients be the test case for anything, especially for us. It may make sense for Orange County to be the test case. It may make sense for Monroe County, Miami-Dade, or a larger county with a lot larger tax base and a lot larger set of resources to go fight this issue because they may have the money to spend to do it. Does it make sense for Walton County? While we are a high tourism impact county and we receive a lot of revenue here, it's still one of those questions. I still look at the fact that we're not Orlando. We're not Tampa. We don't have Disney in our backyard boosting those numbers. I think everybody sees what we spend our time with, trying to deal with infrastructure costs, preparing for storms, things of that nature. So from a practical standpoint, I'll spend all the time you want me to, and I'll do everything I can. But is that the best use of your resources? Candidly, it's going to be sorted out by somebody. I don't know that it makes sense for us to be the one out there braving how to sort it out. And we've taken that position, mind you, on Orbit, Travelocity, Expedia, in those cases where those matters have been started and we've chosen to join in later to be part of it. But Walton County has always taken the position on those that we would abstain from those until we knew what it was going to look like and have an opportunity to determine if it made sense for us to join. I think that makes a lot of sense in this case.
Okay. Thanks, Glenn. So, is that enough information for everybody?
I have one question. One of the things that you were concerned about was the transparency and revealing certain things to our competitors. Who do you consider our competitors to be, and what are they doing?
I mean, I consider we have a lot of competitors in Florida. I mean, our neighbors. I mean, they're our competitors. Down south, I think Naples is our competitor. So in regards to the people who are not participating with Visit Florida right now, Miami is not participating. The Florida Keys is not participating. Santa Rosa County is not participating. And the other one was, it escapes me, Palm Beach, maybe?
Brevard.
Was that it?
When we looked, what I tried to look at was the high tourism impact counties, just so you know, of which there are 7 in the state. We are one of 3 of those 7 exclusive of us. I think of the 4 or 5 that aren't participating, 3 of them were high tourism impact counties. If we opted out, we'd be the 4th, and so a majority of the high tourism impact counties. And that's, so you know what that term is. That's a term in the statute that says either we collect more than X number of dollars in gross sales, or our gross sales are greater than 20% of the county's revenue. we don't hit that high dollar 600 million. We do exceed 20% of the county's total gross taxable receipts based on our 200 million in taxable sales that we exceed in TDC money, and we have for quite a while. So we're one of those few counties that qualifies for that higher level. And all it really gets you, it's something that DOR classifies you as. Really, all it entitles you to is the ability to levy 1 extra cent. We do not levy that extra cent of TDT dollars, but you're able to do so. The exception to that is Monroe County, the Keys. They don't fall under that. They actually have a separate Tourist Development Impact Act that allows them an entirely different taxing structure to follow under a separate provision of statute. It's a special act of local application only to Monroe County and the Keys. But the point is, they're exempted from high tourism impact because they get their own tax structure. But those have all opted out.
All right, we have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not renew our relationship with Visit Florida.
At this time, okay.
Second.
We have a motion.
We need public comment.
Public comment,
Before the
well, we
vote.
have a motion and a second, and then, any discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody's on the bandwagon to pass this, but I think you're making a mistake. And everybody knows that Speaker Corcoran, his goal was to eliminate Visit Florida. And what you probably don't understand is Visit Florida is not just $76 million from the state. It is a public-private partnership. Probably a lot of y'all are members of Visit Florida, and they get a majority of their funding, or at least they did 3 years ago, from private, not from the public. As Jay told you, all this information is already public information. You want to know what everybody makes? You want to know what our marketing plan is? You want to know anything? You just do a public records request and you can do it. We talk about the benefit. You remember Emerald's Cooking? Remember that show? That was a Visit Florida co-op. They started that. Okay? Cost us very little, but I will tell you, it brought a lot of attention to the culinary aspect of South Walton County. Okay? You want to talk about the branding of the trains up in Chicago and a bunch of other things. There are some benefits, and there have been benefits to this county and its tourism. All this is an attempt, and I think the governor was right when he stood up to the speaker and said, no, we're not going to let you kill the #1 jobs creator in this state. This is the backdoor way to kill the #1 jobs creator in this state. And all he wants to do is have everybody pull their funding, and then when they pull the $76 million next year, it goes away. And Mr. Corcoran has achieved his objective. So I would just encourage you not to give in to this, but to defend tourism and the tourism industry in this county and this state. Thank you.
Any other comment? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No.
2. Motion carries.
And we can monitor this and, report back as the year goes on. And that way, obviously, there are a couple of council members have some concerns about that. So we can monitor that and we can report back to you as we move forward in the next year.
Yeah, I just feel like we might be a little misinformed at this point. I know we're all kicking it around, but I'm not sure we fully understand the reach and the breadth that they have, in our marketing overall scheme. So I'm going to do my own research as well.
Okay. And I'll be happy to get with you. Outside of the meeting, and we can talk. And if there's anything that I can do to, help you with your decision, I'll be happy to do that.
I think Mr. Atkinson's comments were critical from the standpoint that we continue to monitor this, and we have maybe some test cases that come along that kind of clarify where we stand. I think it's something that we probably ought to keep on the back burner. But for right now, it scares the heck out of me, and I don't want to give our competitors any more advantage than we absolutely have to, and that's a big concern.
that was my concern, and that's why I wanted to bring it forward to the council and have the council make the decision. You know, there certainly are benefits to Visit Florida, but obviously when you have to put that information out there, that's a minus in my opinion. But you know, you need to weigh the plus and minuses.
I don't want to be the guinea pig on this one.
You know, and again, board we can come back to this, and we can join back up. So it's just getting through some of this. It's a cloud right now. Mr. Bagby made some good points. They have supported, or they have been a part of some of the things that we've done and been very successful. But when it comes to legislative action, sometimes you gotta just kind of wait till the smoke clears a little bit and kind of see what all you have to do, because there could be another employee we have to add, or you know, going to the clerk of court. We just got to make sure that we're clear. And I think and it's a close vote for me, but I think right now let's just sit back and evaluate it, and we can always join up.
And the board is always able to instruct staff if they would like staff to bring additional market analysis back about what the reach of the Visit Florida buys would be versus their own. That's something that you could instruct staff to come back to. Obviously, we're 60 days out of a new budget year, you know, so you're now into shoulder season. We're outside of some of that heavy time for our staff. So that was one of the concerns that I expressed to Jay, was that if we're not able to have the information for the council to make a final decision today on, perhaps that's something the council may want to see. So certainly, if that is a concern for the council, tasking staff to get us that information or put together as best as they can and bring it back to the board would be one way to proceed, so that you have that information and we're not sitting here in budget scrubs next year trying to decide whether we sign up again. That gives you some front running time. And I know that Jay's team's already started to try to work on that, but that's something you specifically want tasked, you know, set as a calendar, mark 90 days, you know, it would be, I guess, probably, since we meet every 2 months, do it 120 days out and be back in 120 days to see what information we can give you and give you an update on the whole process. The problem is just where it fell versus where you met. That's why we had to hand you something today, or we'd be remiss if we didn't give that to you.
Okay. And I'd be happy. I mean, I can meet with Matt and Pam, and you know, if we want to capture some data as we move forward to look at that to make a decision in the future, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, let's do that. All right.
Let's see. Next agenda item is the Cultural Arts Alliance Underwater Museum of Art. Okay, there we go. Next slide. Okay, so this is a request from the Cultural Arts Alliance. Jennifer Steele apologizes. She was not able to be here. She is out of town. So I told her that I would present this on her behalf. So the Cultural Arts Alliance is partnering with SWARA to create a underwater museum about a little more than half mile off the coast of Grayton Beach State Park. Initially, you'll see they're doing 6 sculptures, and more will be added later. And they have gotten a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts for $10,000, and it's a matching grant. So that's why Jennifer came to me and asked if we would be interested in basically sponsoring this, if you will, to supplement the $10,000 that's needed for the matching grant. So I think we have a picture on the next one. So these are just some examples of underwater museum of arts, what they may look like. And by any means, we have not decided on what ours will look like, but those are just some examples. So you know, it's a little different, obviously, from the reefs. I mean, these are actual art that is submerged under the water. You know, they have different, you know, sculptures, people, and so on. So pretty neat concept. I think it's just that next step for like what SWARA is doing with the reefs. Adds another component of the arts and the scuba diving. Actually, I think this is going to be close enough in where it can be, you can snorkel this, as opposed to the other ones that are a little bit further out that you have to snorkel to. So, any questions?
One question. It said they were going to be mounted on top of those pedestals, top of the Grouper Grotto.
Yeah, so the Grouper Grotto, I don't know if you're all familiar with that, but those are the pyramids where the fish swim into. So that helps bring the fish and the wildlife in near the sculptures. So I don't think they'll all be mounted on there, but I think they may have some components of that, which helps, like I said, bring the fish in, because that's what the fish like, are those little nooks and crannies. And so that way when you're swimming around the sculptures, you'll have all the tropical fish around there.
Jay, the purpose of it, though, is to create art, not
Correct.
reefs.
Correct.
In other words, if they have a pedestal of a lion there, it doesn't create a protective zone for a fish to mature, like the reefs do.
That's what the reefs do, yeah.
Right,
So,
so this is strictly an art thing, it has nothing to do with attracting more fish. It's
correct. Well, I mean, a little bit. I mean, obviously, you know, like they have the little grouper grotto thing, and that's to attract some fish, but that's not the main focus of it. The main focus is the art, but obviously you want some interaction while you're swimming, that you see a beautiful tropical fish down when you're taking in the art.
So this is to attract divers or snorkelers or something like that?
I mean, snorkelers, this is a little bit more probably of a, I say novice, if you will. I mean, it's because it's snorkeling. It's not that far out. So I mean, you could paddleboard out there or kayak or something, and then you could just snorkel down there. So
How deep is the water right there, Jake?
I don't know that, Richard.
Should not-
the water would be out there?
How far?
It's just 50 to 60 feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say
That's
40
long-
feet
That's a
at
long
least.
way to snorkel.
Yeah, that's a long way out.
I think there's a lot better ways to spend $10,000.
Yeah.
I'm all about diving and fish, but this investment.
I mean, I think there's a tourism component to it. We're already well vested in the Saguaro with the reefs, so
David had something to say.
No, not at all.
So my team got to meet with the SWAR folks and the UMA Underwater Museum of Art people at the CAA. So to clarify, it is in 60 feet of water. That's about 0.7 miles off Grayton Beach. This would be the first underwater museum of art in the United States. So there's a great tourism potential from at least a PR standpoint. We've already seen interest from diving magazines and reporters that way. It's something unique. As to the reef versus sculpture, if you put anything in the water that offers some relief, some shade from the currents, that's going to become a reef. It will attract fish. What they're doing by partnering with SWAR is they're kind of hedging their bets. They're attaching the sculptures on top of the grouper grottos or grouper boxes, which I think are about 5 or 6 feet wide, square, and about 3 feet high in elevation, that have the space that the fish like to swim into. And so you hedge your bets there. You know it's going to, even if you just put down the boxes without the sculptures on top, you're attracting fish. So this is a way to get both. It really is the pictures you saw were in Mexico, which I think is really one of the only other underwater museums of art in the world. So
Doesn't the Keys have?
they've got a statue. Yep, they've got a statue down there, and the fact that you know about it speaks to how successful these things can be. They can be very iconic. UMA's, yes, sir.
David, I got a question. So how many of these are going to be, how many statues are we going to have?
They plan to continue to do this, to self-fund it, to find sponsors for it, and to continue to expand it every year is their plan. So six to start out with.
6. All right, and let's see, we don't know what they are going to be, but they're just going to be statues or something.
CAA will get samples and drawings and small models sent to them. The application is already out, so they'll choose who the winners are from different artists. Rather than having one artist do all of them, you get to choose who wins it, commission them to do these pieces.
And how long will it take, and when will that happen?
I believe the deadline is in about 2 months. You guys remember? About 2 months from now. They want to have it in the water in the museum open by the end of summer in 2018.
I think the place in the Keys you might be thinking of is John Pennekamp State Park. It's really cool. When I was younger, I did a lot of diving, and I grew up in the Midwest, and that was a big deal. We were taking a 10-day trip to the Keys, but one of the big attractions, one of the things that everybody talked about, was diving in this underwater park where you could, swim through all these amazing kind of, statues and stuff. So there was a lot going on there, and it was a big attraction. It was in about 30 feet of water, I believe.
Especially in the days of Instagram and Facebook, where if you can show something iconic and specific to place. So one of the reasons I like it is not only because it's a really sticky PR story, but also because of it. It uniquely tells the story of South Walton, which is combining the art and the Gulf of Mexico, and that idea of reefs and preservation.
Does anybody have an estimate on how long these things will last?
That would really, the grouper boxes on the bottom, again, we're hedging our bets here, would last forever. As far as the individual pieces of art, that is going to be determined by their construction.
Yeah, I believe the reefs that Sora put down, that was a concern, so they did something that's technically storm-proof, hurricane-proof. It's not the grouper triangle, grouper grotto.
Yeah.
I have no idea about the sculpture that's going to get.
What are they made of?
They have regulations on, it has to be, the sculpture approved for underwater stuff, so you're going to be looking at, I believe, a limestone, concrete, and iron, but that part I don't know. That's to a degree up to the artists, but there are lots of materials that they wouldn't be allowed to use.
Okay. Then so they've got a grant for 10. We just need to put up the other 10.
If we put up the 10, or if somebody puts up the 10, then they get the other 10 from the Endowment for Arts.
And we get 6 statues. All right, guys. What do you want to do?
Make a motion, we vote for it.
Okay, make him approve the 10,000. Those in favor say aye. Oh, we have a second? We have a second. We have a motion to approve. We have a second? Who's vice chair? Commissioner Henderson.
Hey, he's sitting next to you again.
Yeah. Here, you're vice chair today. Who's secretary?
I'm secretary.
Pardon?
You're able to designate whoever you want from officers or
I
the
can't
board to
go.
serve as vice chair if you have to step down.
So what do I need to do?
I would
I'm-
mention that
I'm
SWARA says it takes about $4,000 to $5,000 a piece to deploy each of these. So if all you put in was $10,000 and you got 6 of these reefs deployed, that would be a bargain.
Well,
But
and I
that would
second-
be other people.
I second the motion, and I just want to say this on the second, is that, we've got the reefs up, and we've contributed already, and if we can take it and just tweak it a little bit and move a little bit in a different direction, so if we're trying to draw the divers and the snorkelers, I mean, we can't just sit there and let them just put up these reefs and, here, that's it. Give them something else to go look at. So, anyway, that's my second. All right, I second it.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Public comment, Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
if there isn't.
Go ahead. Good morning.
Morning.
Can you state your name, please?
Lee Moore,
Hi, Lee.
Moore. Thank you, council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to give a little bit of perspective. I'm on the Destination Improvement Committee for the TDC, and we see a lot of requests come through that are, I would say, not in keeping with the image that we want to create for this place. I think this is right in line with that image. It is classy, it is something different and unique, and all 3 of those words to me describe South Walton. So I would just encourage you to strongly consider this. I think it's a fantastic project. Anytime we can bring in the arts more and more, which is something I think that we're not necessarily seeing in our country as much of an importance and emphasis placed on it, I think it's a great benefit to us in the culture that we're trying to create here. Thank you. And I also think those folks that would be interested in this are exactly the kinds of tourists that we want to attract.
Excuse me, Lee, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But when did that come up in the destination as improvement?
We haven't seen this.
Okay, because I didn't see it either. So
No.
I was just curious.
So this did not go before the Destination Improvement Committee. Because of the timeline with the grant, Jennifer came to see me just a couple of weeks ago. It was after the Destination Improvement Committee meeting. And so they are trying to get these matching dollars so they don't lose the National Endowment matching the grant. And I think she said, if I remember correctly, that was in September that they need to find these matching dollars by. So that's if we are going to give them the dollars, it was kind of a little urgency there. Obviously, beyond if it gets approved today by the council, then it needs to move forward to the BCC. So there were some timing issues of why it wasn't presented to the Destination Improvement Committee.
So it's, let me understand the dollars now. I understand the matching grant.
Right.
But David just said something about the deployment cost.
Right. Right now, the CAA is not asking us for those dollars. They are asking us for the $10,000 to match the National Endowment for the Arts grant. It would cost about $120,000 for this project with these 6 statues, and all they are asking for us, excuse me, is the $10,000.
So what if they don't raise the money?
Then we don't give them the money.
And what if they have 20,000 to work with, and then they can't raise what's needed, so they decide, well, 1 statue is probably better than 5 statues, and what we think we have helped create turns out not to be that at all.
I think
That
Jennifer.
was a rhetorical question.
No, and I understand that, but I think Jennifer is very successful in securing funds, so I'm pretty confident she'll have the dollars she needs.
But if she doesn't,
Yeah.
and they run up, let's say she's able to raise another $50,000, just hypothetically, and they can't raise the other $50,000 to complete the project, then what? Are they going to come back to us and ask us for more money to finish it? There's a lot of unknowns in my head right now.
That's a very good question.
The council member who made the motion could amend the motion if they so desired. If the seconder so desired to amend their second to make our provision of funds contingent on them showing proof of adequate funding for the balance of the funds needed to move forward with the project. So in that case, you could make your funding contingent on that, very similar to how we've done other grant and sponsorship awards where we require them to show the spend up front. In this case, if they show us they have the money in hand, that would be consistent how we've done it before. So that would certainly be one option to address that. Otherwise, no, I don't think we could just simply hand them the money if they don't have the money in hand at this point in time.
I guess it could be done like a commitment of 10,000, towards the full effort, and then they can go out and they can tell other, potential donors, we've got a commitment here, we have a commitment here,
Is a commitment sufficient for the National Endowment to give their $10,000?
I'm not sure.
What I would say, I think we use the commitment language in the form of we will pledge that contingent on proof of adequate funds for completion of the project. And that way they know they have a pledged sum of money from the TDC. If they come back to us and tell us that's insufficient, I think it has to come back to the council anyway. But that would be one way to address that concern about what happens. And certainly if we just provide $10,000 and it doesn't get completed, we have to have some agreement that's going to allow us to recoup those tax dollars. You can't just give a private organization money that's not going to go towards a public purpose.
Yeah, and as much as you can reassure us of that, Jay, facts are facts. And
They are, I agree. I mean, they could fall short.
Yeah.
So do we need to amend it?
If you want to address that concern, I would recommend you amend it. Otherwise, the motion can go to the floor for a vote and it may fail.
I think rather than let it die, I'd be agreeable to amend it.
To amend, okay.
Make it in that language, and then I guess there's still the question of would the National Endowments write their check, given the language of this motion? Do we know that?
And that I don't know.
Well, that's a toughie, because if we pledge it and the National Endowment says, you don't have the money, you have a pledge, which can be pulled back at any time.
Yeah, part of it is like, do you believe in, what Jennifer's, program is all about? And I personally, I do. So I think it's a little bit of a philanthropic, kind of an idea as opposed to just hard dollars and cents. So,
While I cannot speak to the National Endowment of Arts or for the Arts and their requirements, I can say that with other local governments I represent, we have often had to send copies of minutes showing that we have committed funding contingent on a project being approved, contingent on, for instance, in public-private partnerships, the developer moving forward with certain steps. We've done that before with various private and public, meaning federal even, grant monies, and that has been sufficient in those cases. Again, they may have a separate standard, but typically anybody who does business with the government understands any government commitment, and it's embedded in Florida law, any government commitment is always subject to that government funding that in the appropriate budget years. And you always run the risk of doing business with the government. They may not fund what they hired you to do, and you're just out of luck in that scenario in many cases. So it would surprise me to learn that a formal vote here approving it would be insufficient, but I've never dealt with them before, so.
I just have one comment. Having snorkeled and dived in Los Cabos, Mexico, natural is a lot more attractive to me than dropping sculptures in the water. At 30 feet, it has some snorkeling value. At 60 feet, it has some no snorkeling value. To be a diver, the benefit from that investment. I also think that we would be subject to some questioning about dropping $10,000 in the water when it doesn't have any real eco value. So that's my opinion and comment.
All right.
And I think we're trying to talk about the money, but let's talk about whether this suits our mission and our goals. I mean, is this driven by the need for an enhanced snorkeling and diving experience? Is this, what drives this? I don't hear enough about this to understand it and get past exactly what my colleague to my left said. So I am, at this point, not in favor of it because I can't connect it. I mean, I'm a huge supporter of the arts, but this is not an artistic effort, at least so far that I've heard, that I can support.
All right. Have you amended your motion, Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion to say that TDC would contribute $10,000 contingent upon the Cultural Arts Alliance meeting their projected goal of building the 6 statues that have been proposed here today.
Do you want to put a dollar figure on it?
$10,000.
No, I mean, on the total, the estimate is 120,000.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to make that part of your motion?
Contingent upon meeting the $120,000 goal of creating the underwater statue complex off Great.
Did everybody understand his motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion fails to carry. You may have your stick back.
Thank you. And let me just say one thing. What really, this is where you see the discussion here. If someone brings something before us, we would really like somebody representing that group to be here and to explain what it's all about, what they're going to do, and how it's going to be done. It's not really your job, Jay.
I agree.
It's their job. So my initial is to say just bring it back next time and be here. And that's initially what I would tell you. But today I just wanted to move this forward. It's a great idea, and she had a timeline, so we can get through it. But from now on, whoever's out there, if they're listening and watching, better show up. Swara should have been here if they knew about it. So one of those 2 groups. So anyway, that's what happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the other thing, and your point's well taken, is that when and if somebody wants to bring something, and I know this was a very short timeline because of this thing with the National Endowment of the Arts, we've got to have some lead time. We can't make a vote based on a grant. And I feel like we got kind of put in the corner this morning because of it. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Market Research Services, Mike Kerrigan. Come
Morning,
on
Mike.
down. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, thank
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning. Since the last council meeting, the Market Research Services RFP has gone out. 3 proposals came back, and on July 27th, an evaluation committee met to review those. I believe you have the final tabulated score sheet there in front of you. It's the recommendation of that committee that we move forward and execute a contract with the respondent Downs and St. Germain. With your approval, we'd like to present this recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
I'd like to just add a couple of things. I was one of the 3 people that were on this panel, and if you look at the scores, you can tell that they're fairly close. The 3 people that did the scoring on this proposal did them confidentially. Jay was one, Mike was one, and I was one. And we all did them separately. It was delivered to me in a sealed package, and I did mine, he did his, and he did his. So we kept it the way it should be done. The 2 that scored the lowest, Chandler Thinks and Study Hall Research, we felt like both of those companies did not have the experience in destinations similar to ours. In fact, one of the companies, their big star in their huge portfolio was some tiny little city in Kentucky, probably a population of 3,500 that probably sells Kentucky whiskey or something. But that was their star. The other company, the proposal was real precise on including travel, and when they came with their proposed cost, they put at the bottom travel not included, which we felt was not meeting the criteria. So if you look at the scores, they're very indicative. All 3 of us came up with very close scores. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of want to share that with you because I was part of that. And I'm glad we got a motion and a second that quickly because I'm all for what these score sheets say. And I just want to share with you what I got out of working on this project.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Any other discussion?
No, other than to say I've been very impressed with Philip Downs and his crew.
Right.
St. Germain. Very good.
I look forward to getting our quarterly information from these gentlemen. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, old business. Beach management plan.
Good morning, Council. My name is Duncan Greer with Taylor Engineering. Just real quickly, we held a beach management workshop on June 21st, 2017, where we discussed beach management alternatives and solicited public feedback. We continue our coordination with the state regarding those public concerns, and that workshop is available online in the presentation as well on the county website. Following the workshop, we began drafting the county's storm response plan, where we're outlining proactive and reactive beach management activities and alternatives. Following the direction of the BCC, we're coordinating with TDC staff for authorization to begin permitting a countywide beach nourishment project similar in scope to the HSDR project, the Hurricane and Storm Damage Reduction Project. To be clear, it's not the HSDR, and no project is currently proposed. The permitting effort is simply a proactive approach to obtain the permits in case of an erosive event such as a hurricane or a tropical storm. So that's all I have for today. If you guys have any questions.
You're going to get that out to the community too, so that they're not up in arms.
The storm damage response plan?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the storm response plan? Yeah, we're drafting that now. We should have that wrapped up in the next 30 days or so. And we'll send a draft over to the TDC to review it, and I'm sure it'll all be public record. Anything else?
Okay. Thanks, Duncan.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Zender.
Good morning, Catherine Andre with Zender Communications, giving you updates on what we've been up to for the past few months on the marketing front. A couple of new media opportunities that we came across. The first is Convention South, their August issue. We were able to be in that meetings directory specific issue with a full page ad at a lower cost and also additional added value opportunities. And then with our beach safety opportunistic budget, we also came across an opportunity with a website called funforemeraldcoastkids.com, targeting parents who are bringing their kids here who also are locals. We figured that would be a really important place to have that local safety message. So it was very low cost to us. We also got some added value Facebook posts with that. Speaking of added value, looking at this, these are June numbers, but of the $6.7 million worth of paid media that you guys have accrued to date, we've only paid for 4.3 million of that. So continuing to achieve that 55% total of placed media to date at no cost. One notable placement back when, before Visit Florida's new fiscal year, we did place that Facebook Canvas ad with them. It's a really immersive experience on Facebook. It includes 360 video, tilt to pan images, just is a really great opportunity, especially for this destination, to really show people what we're all about. So we were able to place that with Visit Florida. They put additional dollars behind it. And then as an added value placement, they did additional ads on Facebook to draw people to that canvas. It included a number of destinations that they've been working with, but South Walton was the first in that placement. So people could click through from that ad to our canvas as an added value. And then the second you'll see here is in Bon Appetit's May issue. We had a co-op ad running there, but we also received a Savor South Walton additional listing speaking about our culinary opportunities in the destination. Our spring co-op campaign ended in June. It ran April through June. We do have 3 packages offered in that campaign. The partners are guaranteed a certain number of clicks, and then Zender assigns a click goal above and beyond that guaranteed number. And as you'll see here, each partner well exceeded that guaranteed click as well as the click goal. And then each of those partners also receive reports specific to their placement, so they should be receiving those in the next week. For our brand digital online performance, our mobile and desktop placements continue to perform above industry average click-through rates. For mobile, we see that the Facebook carousel ad performs very well. It's an opportunity to show a number of different specific pieces about the destination: culinary, beach, beyond the beach opportunities. And so that seems to be performing very well for us. And then on desktop, our meeting-specific ad performed best this month. For search engine marketing, this is our Google AdWords. We continue to exceed the industry average and our click-through rate goal. As you can see, we are trending well above those goals over the last few months. We continue to monitor that and make sure that we're adjusting dollars based on what keywords are performing best. So putting more money behind those that are performing well, taking away from those that aren't. And then also making sure that we're monitoring competitor trends so that we're able to place dollars accordingly. For our Endless Summer campaign, you have heard about this in our last 2 meetings. We went over the media plan, and we also went over the creative. So we wanted to give you guys a report on how it's actually doing out in marketplace. This is to raise awareness for continuing travel into the fall months, making sure that people realize that it remains beautiful here way beyond where it might remain beautiful at their homes. So continue to come visit us. In 1 month, we received 2.7 million views, and our goal for the end of the campaign is 8.5 million, so we're really on trend to hit that, and it's doing very well. These videos are running on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're doing some Boingo Airport Wi-Fi takeovers, some Southwest in-flight as well. The family-focused Stretch Your Summer video has had over 820,000 views on YouTube so far. You'll see Texas is our top market here. That's because 2 of our target markets are within Texas, so that's to be expected. And mobile phones are really where people are viewing this content. The same goes for our romance-focused video, has had over 305,000 views, and we're continuing to monitor that. One gauge that we use, especially for our digital placements, is what does our web traffic look like from these target markets? And so what we'll see here is the last 2 months of the campaign, website traffic has skyrocketed from all of our target markets. It increased 92% from all of those markets in May, and then an additional 40% in June. For instance, Houston traffic since April has increased by 426%. and Atlanta traffic to our website has increased by 135%. So we're really getting people in our target markets to our website to learn more about the destination.
It's two of the excuse me, it's two of the markets we were focusing on, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And two of the markets that we've had activations in. Atlanta we've already done, and the Woodlands will be in next week. A couple creative elements to go through with you guys today. We did create a visitor guide promotion video. This is for our current visitor guide, trying to get people to request it on our website, but it also kind of has a dual purpose because it really just explains the destination in the video as well. So we've placed this on YouTube and social media. We're putting some promotion behind it, and I do believe we'll be able to watch that. So what we did here was took elements of the visitor guide and kind of brought it to life to show you that the images on the page actually are what this destination looks like. So we're able to also do some cut downs of that, do specific neighborhood focuses, specifically culinary, specifically romance. So that has just launched in the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue to monitor that performance. As I mentioned, we will be in the Woodlands next week for an activation at Market Street, their affluent shopping area. It's tax-free weekend for them. So we'll have our booth there, we'll have a chef, we'll have all these experiential elements. But we did also place some paid media around it just to raise awareness of the fact that we're going to be there, but also talk about the destination. And one of those placements was a window cling opportunity in Market Street. There's a retail space that is not occupied right now. It's on a very high traffic area right off of the parking lot. And so we were able to wrap the windows, 6 panels, floor to ceiling with our messaging. So this is very large when you walk into Market Street, and we have our Refresh Your Summer messaging. And then that last panel gives you a little bit of information about what we're going to be doing next weekend. Come see us. And then after the weekend is over, we'll replace that last panel with a general destination message to say, visit our website to learn more about South Walton. And it will run for about a month after the activation ends. We've also redesigned our leisure e-newsletter template. The first deployment of that was in June. We base this off of industry best practices, what we've seen our consumers, how they behave with our current or our older e-newsletter template, and the type of content that they're looking for. So you'll see that it's short and sweet. It doesn't give you too much information. It really teases those stories and gets you to click through. We had the first deployment of that in June, and we have had our highest open rates year to date. So that's doing great. And then we also redesigned the meetings e-newsletter template in that same process, and we will deploy that first one in a couple of weeks. Looking at our social media channels, you'll see here year-over-year growth still trending great. Specifically for Facebook, our growth rate is ahead of that competitor average, which is great to see considering knowing that Facebook is moving their priority away from channel growth. So we still put some efforts behind that, especially some paid media efforts behind that, but everything is really moving towards engagement. So when we're looking at engagement, we are a little bit below that competitor average engagement rate. That's also always going to take into account competitor audience size. So smaller competitors, it takes a little bit less of an engagement to get a higher engagement rate. So taking that with a grain of salt. And then also, that's only considering likes, comments, and shares. They don't take into account link clicks, video views, image views, or anything like that. And so much of our content is trying to get people to our website or promoting videos. So when we do look at our overall engagement rate, it's increased significantly since we've kind of changed our content strategy in February, implemented those incremental dollars in March. We are actually, I checked today, at our highest engagement rate since the beginning of this fiscal year at 0.46%. So we're continuing to trend high on that as well.
How did, go ahead, Miguel. How did Panama City get ahead of us in Facebook page growth?
They're probably putting more of their money towards their Facebook page growth than they are their engagement.
Is that what they're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But we would prefer, honestly, we want to grow our page. We want more people to see our content. But if you put money behind page or post engagement, you're getting people to see your posts that aren't necessarily your fans too. So it's kind of a dual effort.
Yeah.
And also $1 million would do that.
I mean,
Yeah, they put a lot of money into social media. So
just $1 million.
Yeah.
I had a similar question.
Go ahead.
It was more towards Fort Myers and Sanibel, which leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. Is that $1 million?
Yes. Yes, that is definitely a budget thing. As we put more money behind it, we're seeing that we're continuing to chip away at that, but it's definitely every post that they have is promoted significantly.
That has nothing to do, this is seasonal though, right? Year to date? Or
Yes.
is this- Okay, so, because they're kind of the opposite season, so it doesn't have to do with the timing wise, does it?
No.
Okay, just the money.
Just the money.
That's a big difference.
Which is why in March we did recommend that incremental budget, because that's what we're seeing. Facebook is really a pay-to-play world, and if you put money behind it, your numbers are going to go. So. And then for our content for June, we had 3 articles. One is starting a Bikeable Beach Neighborhood series. Started on the east end of the neighborhoods, and that performed very well. We also had our Live Like a Local series, where the chefs like to eat when they're off the clock. And then the 3rd article was Sneak Out for Apps and Cocktails. So just places that you can go for quick food and drink in the afternoon. I included the view numbers here because these are actually 2 to 3 times higher than our typical content views. So it really shows that our content strategy is performing very well. The traffic to these come from our new e-newsletter template. So again, that's performing well. We also had a paid email with Sherman's Travel this month since we didn't have a co-op sweeps partner. We use that as a leisure email, and then also our social content is driving traffic to these articles. And that is all I have for you today. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? No, ma'am. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
The background on this stuff.
Marketing.
Good morning, TDC Council members. I'm Jeff Zender of Zender Communications. I'll be providing an overview of 2 of the visitor tracking and ADR, average daily rate, studies that were done by Downs and St. Germain, winter of 2017 and spring of 2017. You'll recall that in order to maintain our pattern of consistent research, we needed to continue these studies even while we were conducting a market research services RFP. Zender offered to serve as an intermediary and to continue working with Downs and St. Germain, who was previously under contract, and obviously you renewed again, to execute both these reports. And since the issue was raised previously, I'll just reiterate that Zender passed through all of Downs and St. Germain's costs at no service fee, no markup. These were all net. We just felt it was critically important to maintain the continuity. So I'll walk you through the winter study first, and then the more recent spring survey. Overall, the winter 2017 numbers looked terrific. Our occupancy was up 4%, room rates were up nearly 1%, and RevPAR, which is revenue per average room, was up nearly 5%. You'll also note that all the other indicators on this are extremely positive. What this means is we continue to attract more visitors more frequently and at a higher average room rate. Looking at the visitors themselves, we saw the travel party size grow slightly, but with fewer kids, possibly a reflection to our shoulder season visitors to events. The average household income continues to rise and now stands at $156,400, up from $152,500 in the previous report. Driving continues to be the travel choice among our winter visitors, increasing to nearly 90%. And if you do have the time to look at the full report, you'll see that we have plenty of room to increase awareness of our direct flight options to key markets. It is an interesting contrast between the winter study and the spring survey on awareness of our airport options. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. We've also seen direct expenditures rise about 7% to an average now of $4,543 per trip. And last, 21% of our visitors are in South Walton for the first time, down slightly from last year, but still demonstrating strong growth in this area. The one negative that I'll point out on here is the usage of the term South Walton. We saw a slight dip in that from 20% to 18%, which is consistent with what the overall usage is, and obviously we've placed great emphasis on trying to grow the usage of the term South Walton. Continuing on with the visitor profile, our visitors continue to have very positive experiences and tend to return to South Walton. You'll recall that Dr. Downs has spoken frequently on the stratospheric numbers that we have in terms of favorability and intent to return. Our visitors are still planning their trips pretty far in advance, 4 to 6 months on average, although there's still a sizable percentage that do plan this in an earlier time frame. And they're using our branded online sources, our website, the beach app, as well as the online visitor guide for information. They're also using our beach communities sites as well to make their decisions. And then one side note on the intent to return to South Walton. Although we saw a 4% decrease in this question, it's important to probably note that 5% said don't know rather than no. So there's still an opportunity, obviously, to sway those visitors. It's no surprise that the Southeast continues to drive the largest percentage of our visitors at 61%, but we're also moving a bit more into the Northeast, the West, and the Midwest for visitor origin. All the markets where we are marketing continue to show an increase in visitation, so we feel like our marketing is seemingly having a positive impact on this. Our winter visitors continue to care most about dining options and relaxing, with the beach ranking as the third highest draw. You'll see a little bit of a flip in that when we go to the spring survey. Down to St. Germain also put together some GIS maps. A little difficult to see here, but I think you may be able to see them better in front of you, reflecting the past 2 winter studies. On this map, you can see that the average spend per trip increases in relation to the distance our visitors travel. The further they're traveling, the more they're spending. Obviously, on this list, you can see New York and Chicago top that list.
Grand Rapids, Michigan came in 5th.
Yeah, and you'll see Detroit in some surveys as well, which is quite interesting.
I noticed
too.
that.
So is that spend dollar, is that any way a function of how far they have to travel in terms of like flights and things like that, or is that money they spend once they're here?
It's money they spend once they're here, not the travel accommodations. And this also excluded our Snowbird longer-term visitors. Okay. This is more the short-term visitors. Exactly. Good question there. All right, on the length of trip, those who are traveling the farthest are also obviously staying the longest, with our winter visitors from Detroit staying an average of 20 days. I thought I would anecdotally say that if you've been to Detroit in the winter, you probably understand why.
Yeah.
We continue to see strong growth in first-time visitors from key markets like Houston, Dallas, and Chicago, with other markets like Cleveland and New York City growing. But even our strongest market, Atlanta, showed 19% first-time visitors, which continues to tell us that the opportunity to penetrate that market further absolutely exists. For our loyal visitors, our most loyal visitors are obviously coming from drive markets and largely where we advertise. The one outlier here is the Detroit market. And Catherine and I were having this conversation earlier that we do reach that travel market, Detroit, through our in-flight advertising with Southwest, but it really has not been a market that we've targeted. So it is noted by Downs of St. Germain that some of these surveys are relatively small, so we shouldn't place too much emphasis on it. Visitors who flew are coming from markets we're currently targeting with our marketing efforts. That's paid advertising, promoted social, activations, airport takeovers, etc. Those traveling with children are also coming from these key target markets, and this is consistent with where we see our family travel originating year-round.
Jeff?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you know this or not, but the page before loyal visitors, it has Panama City Destin as number 2.
Let me get back to that one.
So, right here. Loyal visitors, 10 plus visits. has Panama City Destin as number 2. It's just, that's interesting.
It is. I would probably refer to Dr.
John
Downs
Downs,
to
yeah.
dig deeper into that one.
We'll have to give him a call, yeah.
That's weird.
That is weird. I'm thinking, well, they're moving from there to here, I guess, huh?
That's right. And the last graph on the winter study is regarding the median household income. And we're seeing our highest median household income among the visitors from markets like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Dallas-Fort Worth. So unless there's any other further questions on the winter report, I'll move on to spring. Good. Okay. All right. Spring covers the period of March through May of 2017, by the way. Overall, the spring 2017 numbers are even better than the winter report. Our occupancy rates climbed nearly 6%, actually exactly 6%. Room rates climbed 1.3%. And the RevPAR was up more than 7%. And you can see that the rest of the numbers, including total visitors, direct spending, TDT collections, et cetera, were all significantly up.
It's amazing that it's $1 billion during the spring.
It's remarkable to see. We don't normally see two studies side by side. To see the difference between a winter study and a spring study is absolutely remarkable.
Right.
But I think it's impressive to also see the penetration that we've seen just in the 5+ years that Zender's been involved, how we're continuing to see a growth in our shoulder season period. Right. It's absolutely remarkable. So looking at the visitor profile, our travel party size grew slightly, and so did the percentage reporting kids less than 20 years old, which is probably consistent with the spring vacation period. Mr. Veldman, spring vacation. Your preferred definition, right? Our median and average household income, I listened, I remember that. Our median and household income both increased significantly, and the trip direct expenditures increased to $48.44 for the entire trip, which was about a $300 increase over 2016. So both of these metrics continue to reflect our efforts to focus on the quality of the audience rather than the quantity of the audience. Again, as you saw in the winter study, driving is still the preferred mode of transportation, with nearly 85% traveling this way. And with our first-time visitors, that number still remained at about 21%. So we are still continuing to add new customers to mix, which is always important as we see the demographics and those who age out of visitation and travel. Our guests are continuing to have positive experience. These numbers are even higher than the winter study, at 9.1% rating for overall experience, and a whopping 94% stating that they plan to return to South Walton. Those negative responses were noted, if you had a chance to see them, as mainly cost concerns, and there was some overcrowding comments as well. But they are very, very low. Our spring travelers are planning their vacations even further in advance than you saw in the winter report. These are averaging 6+ months, and they're.
Can you dive into that a little deeper? Like, do we just ask them how long you plan, or what's your thought process in that planning? Because that's.
They do ask that question deeper, and it's not on this graphic, but the full report actually has the complete breakdown of the periods. I noticed in kind of reviewing it for this meeting that there's still a sizable number that are not at 6+ months. I mean, so there's big groups of people, but far and away 6+ months was the majority answer. My recollection was it was in the 26% range. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay, sure. So they are continuing to use the branded content that we have provided online to help gather and plan for their vacations. As for the region of origin, our 6 states you'll see here represent 61% of our spring visitors. That's not really a surprise. Southwest is obviously our strongest region, but you'll notice that the Midwest, which we've really been focusing on growing and seen some success there with markets like Chicago and St. Louis, Columbus, etc., continue to grow and now stand at 25%, pretty sizable. We've allocated a lot of marketing dollars to these regions to make that difference. So we continue to see growth from all the regions basically where we're currently marketing. In terms of the draw for spring visitor, you'll remember this is a little bit of a flip. The beach jumps back up to number 1. But if you notice, restaurants are at 93%. Dining still remains a key selling point. I think our focus on that unique, high-quality cuisine in South Walton, continues to make a difference and really pay off in attracting visitors for reasons beyond the beach. As you saw with the winter studies, Downs and St. Germain pulled together GIS maps providing an overview of the past 2 spring studies as well. The spending per trip and the next slide that you'll see, which is length of stay, remain highest for those that are obviously traveling the furthest distance. It's not really a surprise. Among our first-time visitors, we're seeing strong growth from markets like Columbus and Kansas City, which we've been targeting with our marketing. And we also see continued penetration of new visitors from well-known markets like Baton Rouge, Houston, and Dallas. Our loyal visitors are primarily coming from these drive markets and the markets where we advertise in. And our visitors that flew to South Walton are originating in markets where we're also actively targeting. You'll notice most of these are reflected as our emerging markets. Those traveling with children are coming from key target markets and are consistent with where we're seeing our family travel year-round. And finally, on the median household income, we've seen an increase in visitors from Little Rock, whose affluence was really off the chart on this one, and other key markets like Houston, Chicago, and Dallas-Fort Worth continue to show that highest median income, really kind of tapping into our efforts to reach that more affluent customer. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them, or I can relay them to Downs and St. Germain.
Thank you, Jeff.
I would be interested in seeing how Minneapolis, that general population is, how are they finding out more about us?
Absolutely.
Direct flights from there to here?
From where?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis? No.
We're gonna go through Atlanta.
Yeah.
Memphis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'll relay that.
With the region.
Absolutely. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Director's updates.
Before we go on, I'll let the kids make a presentation.
Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning. Thank you again. Happy to be here to give you some updates on the marketing department, what we have got going on now, and what we'll be doing between now and the next one of these meetings. Jay mentioned Courtney joining our team, so we've got a great team in place now. I'm very encouraged in the 6 or 7 weeks that I've been there. Everything that we have in the pipeline, so some great things coming ahead. So let me give you an idea of some of the things we're working on now that you'll see coming out of the marketing department. One thing, the 2018 co-op program is open and closed since the last meeting. Very successfully, we're very encouraged by it. 93% of the total placements that were available to partners were sold, with $139,000 in revenue, which, as you can see there, is a significant 24% increase over the current year. That was a result of more participating partners, up to 20 from 14 this year, as well as more opportunities in general. We expanded the offerings, and they were well received by the partners. So we're encouraged by those numbers. We appreciate the participation in the program. And those placements are being reserved currently as a part of the 2018 paid media plan. Catherine mentioned a little bit the Market Street activation in Houston. Also, we have one in Chicago coming up between now and the next meeting. Both of these cities are ones that we have identified as emerging markets. These are both in high-end retail centers, where we'll have our experience booth, where we'll interact with guests, distribute information on the destination, overall promote visitation to South Walton, and both of these activations are supported by paid media in those markets, leading up to and following the activations. A little update on some creative production that is going on currently. In the early part of July, with Zender, we completed a brand photo shoot to support the 2018 brand campaign. We're expecting the results from that back here shortly that we'll be able to share with you at the next meeting when those come back in. Also, we redid some of our educational sea turtle collateral that'll be going to the printer this week, And we've completed, or in the process of completing, a beach rules awareness campaign, social media paid campaign to make vacationers more aware of the new beach rules that are in place. One project that we brought before the marketing committee that was received with a lot of enthusiasm and approval was the 2018 Visitors Guide. Before I started, staff engaged with Zender to move to a more magazine-style format, more feature-focused, while still serving as a brochure for the area and a vacation planner that people could request online or receive at one of our activations to learn more about the destination and help make a vacation decision. It'll also include more user-friendly digital version, and we're expecting to get this in the spring of 2018. So it's in development currently. I'll have a little preview of it for you in a second here as well. The idea here is just to create something a little bit more engaging than a standard listings directory and brochure piece. It'll still serve those purposes, but just have a little bit more engaging content and a little bit more usefulness to the potential visitor. It also creates the potential for the publishing of some ancillary publications for in-market distribution. We've talked about an in-market dining guide or outdoor activity guide. So this visitor guide redesign is really part of a bit of an overall of our print pieces. So I can show you a little bit. This is still in the very early process, but this would be a sample of a 2-page beach neighborhood spread. In the current visitor guide, each beach neighborhood gets 1 page for 16 total pages, which in a lot of the cases doesn't do justice enough to get photos that accurately represent each of the neighborhoods, as well as engaging copy. So in this new piece, we would be looking to go to a concept that looks a little bit more like this and give a little more attention to each of the beach neighborhoods. When it comes to special events, similarly, as you can see, totally different font treatment, totally different layout than what you've seen in the visitor guide for the past couple of years. It's more of a magazine feature style format than a brochure style format that we currently have. What you'd see here is a potential of what a cover, front and back cover, front being obviously on the right, back on the left, could look like. Going to more of a magazine style format, we would give the publication a name. As you see here, it would just be called South Walton, something that would look a little better when someone goes to pick it up and be a little bit more engaging, again, going to a more magazine style format. So we are still in the very early stages of this. Zender has it kind of on their to-do list right now to continue the development, the estimates of cost for printing, the seasonality of the publication, and that sort of thing. But wanted to share that with this board as it was brought before the marketing committee and was very well received. Some other projects we'll be working on between now and the next meeting. The fishing show that was previously approved now has a name, South Walton Fishing Adventures. Staff is working with accommodations partners, local restaurants, and charter boat captains on finalizing a shot schedule, which will take place here in late summer and early fall for broadcast on the Sportsman's Channel starting in January. So we're really getting into that currently. Yes, sir.
Perhaps I missed it, but
Yeah.
It's been a while too, and I can't even go back to when it was presented to the Board of County Commissioners. I didn't think it was approved. I think it was Commissioner Jones that said we just need a little bit more information or facts.
Could you speak to
I don't
that,
have
Jay?
dates or times. I can't remember.
Sure.
So.
I'm sorry, was that Gary?
It's been some time, but when this was initially presented, again, I don't recall the time, Commissioner Jones actually made the comment that they didn't approve it or didn't want to approve it because they didn't have enough information or facts. And I also think that it did not air or something wasn't picked up. And now it's popped up. And did this go through any committee also? Or?
We brought it back to the BCC in, I believe it was April. We had gotten back with the producer of the show and reviewed some of the questions that the Board of County Commissioners had, and we brought some answers to those questions back to them, and then the board approved at that meeting. I don't have the exact date, but I believe it was April. Might have been March, but I think it was April.
Okay. So what made us pick it up now? What kind
Well,
of information did they say?
Well, the big thing at the BCC meeting, when this was originally discussed in April of last year, was the concern over the amount of time being dedicated towards South Walton. And there was some confusion there. People kept talking about it, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And the 2 minutes within the show is basically a spot, but the whole show is on South Walton. It's fishing in South Walton. So that was the biggest confusion, and that's what the BCC wanted us to go back and clarify on. There was also some questions on the producer's boat, which we have now gone out to a different format where we are using different boat captains, different boats. So it's not just one boat that's going to be highlighted. So the producer gave the TDC a lot of ownership in the show. So we are selecting the participants. We are working with our lodging partners to select them to work and combine them with our restaurant partners of what's a good fit for the person who is going to be participating on the fishing, the restaurant participating, and then the lodging partner. So we can have that synergy of what works best with all those different partners. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Jay. So like I said, the filming is getting underway here shortly, so we're at kind of the tipping point on this project. So when we come back in 2 months, we'll have a lot to share on this one for you. Last thing I want to chat about is the website usability testing that we had conducted on our website, where individuals were asked to perform certain tasks related to our website and provide feedback on the overall usability of the site. We shared a synopsis of those findings with the marketing committee at our last meeting, and those findings included difficulty in finding information, using various filters proved difficult for some people, and so what we have discussed with the marketing committee is allowing us to form a subcommittee of the marketing committee to focus on the website and look at what enhancements need to be in place to address some of the issues that were found in the usability testing. We're in the process of doing that now. Once we have those items prioritized, we'll be engaging with Zender and Miles, the two entities that touch the website, to start prioritizing those projects and executing those enhancements to address the issues that were brought up by the folks that participated in the usability study. So again, when we come back in 2 months, we'll have some more clear direction on the website for you to review.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to commend you on one of the things that you're doing, and that is the visitor's guide. I talked, Christine, is that you back there? Came to visit with me a week and a half or so ago, and I shared some of those comments with her, but she said that my comments echoed a lot of other debt tax collectors, and I think the direction you're going in with the guide is what we really need for that guide to be, and that is something that represents South Walton, not an advertising media type of thing. It has to go to core of the 16 locations, et cetera, et cetera. And the direction you're going in, I think, is excellent.
Well, good. Yeah, we're excited about it. I can't take a tremendous amount of credit for it because that ball was rolling before I got there. But your feelings echo what we heard from folks at the marketing committee and other lodging partners that I've spoken to. So we're excited about it. We're excited about where it is now and what we'll be seeing over the next couple of months as we continue to develop it.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure. If you have any questions on anything marketing-wise, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I can pass it off to Dawn for a group sales update. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sure. Appreciate it, Mike.
Absolutely.
Good work.
Dwelling back on that fishing show.
Sure.
Sorry.
That's okay.
What demographics are we, is it targeting the demographics that we're shooting for with all the research that we've done with Down syndrome Maine?
Well, it will air on these. There's a couple of different ways it'll be distributed. So that's important to note. It'll air on the Sportsman's Channel, so they have their own demographic. Once the 13 episodes have aired on the Sportsman's Channel, then we own the footage. So we can then distribute it socially, digitally, on our website to those markets that we have identified.
Okay, so that's cool.
That's great.
And then what's our initial investment in it? I mean,
I believe, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, $120,000?
That's correct.
I don't mind. That's okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, sales.
Good morning, Council.
morning.
Dawn Trumper, Director of Sales. Since our last meeting, we attended IBTM America. It's mid-June. It was a 3-day show for meeting professionals. We had 28 one-on-one appointments with top-level meeting and event planners. This was a great resource to develop future relationships, and right after the meeting, it actually has already provided 2 leads for us. One over 500 room nights for 2018, so we'll continue to develop those relationships and further. Just last week, we were in Dallas. We sponsored the MPI luncheon for Dallas. It was actually the largest attended monthly MPI chapter meeting for the year. It's 180 suppliers and planners that attended that. It was a great opportunity for us to show a promo video for the destination. We had a branded presentation in the dessert. We had giveaways in all of the chairs. It was really, really well received. Got a lovely email from Federal Express meeting planner who said that she was not as familiar with the destination as she wanted to be, but this presentation really made her pause, and she was very excited about what we did. Our partners in attendance also had the opportunity to present at the podium, and in attendance we had Sandestin Golf and Beach Resort, Topsail Beach and Racket Resort, the Pearl, and the Watercolor Inn. Our next upcoming events in the next 30 days, we'll have our third quarter partner lunch and learn. This is on August 10th, and it's an opportunity for us to solicit feedback from our partners, just to figure out how we can further enhance our service to them. We'll brainstorm together ideas about how to grow their lead funnel and what we can do together to help build shoulder season. Next, you've heard about the activation at Market Street next week. We'll be attending, doing a group planner portion of that. We've already sent out over 200 invitations to targeted meeting planners in the immediate Houston area. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then in late August, we are attending Connect Marketplace. This is held in New Orleans. It's about 1,500 people total in attendance. It's an annual education conference and one-on-one appointments. We're attending 2 tracks, the corporate track and the association track. The appointment scheduler has not opened yet. We expect it to open this week. We'll probably have at least 50 one-on-one appointments, but more to come on that as soon as it opens. So a few other things that we're doing in the group sales effort that I just wanted to make you aware of. We've heard from our partners that one of the big things they would like for us to do is help differentiate the destination. That continues to be a big focus and for us. So I took a look at the most recent industry survey for planners. That survey said that 50% of planners travel for a site inspection before they make a decision. So what we'd like to do is work with our planners in conjunction, figuring out some ways that we can help get further along in the site visit and do a little more proactively before it's completely narrowed down. We think that's going to make a big difference. The survey also said, though, that 35% of planners make a decision not even coming to the destination. So we're also working to make our group portion of online more robust and a little more exciting so that we can, again, assist in differentiating the destination and help close more business. Additional focused efforts, we're building our database. We have a lot to do there. We're creating strategies around our new LinkedIn profile. We are being more proactively involved in MPI chapters, building that corporate market that I've also heard a lot from our partners that they would like assistance with delving into a little bit more. And we're putting additional focus on the regional association conferences as well. Also something we heard from our partners in that recent survey that we talked about. Any questions there? Visitor Center statistics for June, we had 1,447 visitors. This is a 3% decrease over last year, but increase in merchandise sales of 80% with a monthly total of $3,585 for June. July, we just got those numbers this morning. The Visitor Center hosted 1,976 visitors. It's a 34% increase over last year and a 49% increase in merchandise sales. We topped the 5,000 mark in July. To date, the record shows we've had 14,433 visitors and a total of $32,305 in merchandise sales. And then just another quick update, we also worked with the Walton Heritage Association. They have a display now up in North Walton, visitor guides, meeting planner guides, and just some destination and tourism information. Any questions that I can answer?
It's good, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. David.
Hello, David Demarest again, Director of Communications. I think I can keep this fairly short and sweet. It is our summer season, so we push whenever we can to fall or winter, our shoulder seasons. When we can't do that, we go to outdoors stories or we go to high-end luxury offerings. So we've continued to march along, as you see our year-to-date snapshot. The stories rolling in and the media value that reflects is what it would cost to buy ad space or TV or radio time in that same medium. Some of the highlights we've gotten there, you'll see we're looking at a lot of outdoors. You've got some multi-generational travel reflected there and premium destinations. So we're hitting the markets we're looking for and the targets we're aiming for. Press trips coming up. We had one before summer set in, and we're trying to push as much as we can until after the busy months. Our partners appreciate getting the attention in the slower season. Upcoming media visits. We did have a travel writer for Hot Living that is coming in August. She was coming already on her vacation, so we're going to take the opportunity to set up an activity for her, meet her for dinner, make sure we establish that personal contact so that it helps pitching in the future. Also, we've got a wedding writer coming up in September and planning a photography fam trip in the fall, which will show not only how beautiful the area is in the fall, but how photogenic our area is all the time. The desk sides we completed in Atlanta. That's where I go up and meet with different publications and tell them about our destination face to face and establish that communication and that line of contact. Ahead of the Market Street activation that the marketing team is doing in Houston, I'll go into that market, and that gives me two things to talk about. One is, of course, the destination and fall travel and holiday travel, but also the more immediate, later this week, you can get a taste to visit South Walton at the Market Street activation. So it gives us a way to directly tie into a couple media opportunities there. And as I mentioned a little bit, we're looking at luxury, outdoor adventure, family. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have already had good interest in the artificial reefs programs that we do and the Underwater Museum of Art. Interestingly enough, I had two people reach back on the Museum of Art and ask me, when does that exhibit open? So I say, well, it's not really your standard exhibit, but we expect to see that in summer of 2018. And it's always kind of nice to see the clippings and how that plays out. We also have our team in place here. Many of you have met Christine, who's making those face-to-face contacts out in the community. Matt is producing a lot of content that's going to come in very handy when we do our magazines and also when sharing story ideas and story pitches with the media. And Alex has been doing a good job putting together some video content for us to enrich our website as well. And that is it. If you guys have any questions for me, I'd love to answer those.
Nope.
ABC News, any of the most crowded beaches and where to go instead.
Correct. We were the where to go instead.
Okay. Sure. And then is that geared towards like the majority of Florida? The season is, October through May or so, and just curious.
That was an any time. That was an immediate pitch. So they're saying if you're looking for less crowded places.
No, it wasn't. That's
But-
good, David. Thank you.
Very much.
You hate to share that fall season because it is so nice around here, but that's the time we all as locals even enjoy it that much more. It's just perfect time of the year, but now everybody's starting to see, that is a good time of the year.
I think, the idea is to keep people in business and more even it out all year, so it helps with planning.
You got it. Good job.
Morning, Chairman, council members. I'm Brian Kellenberger. Appreciate your time this afternoon or this morning to discuss beach operations activities. So first is daily trash collection for June. As you can see, typical of any year, 300 to 500 bags per day. Slightly down from the year before, but not much. July, we had a big spike in July 4th. Other than that, we averaged about the same from the previous month. Year over year, we were down, a little more than a little bit, but don't have any attributable cause. Could be the weather. Could be people just leaving less trash. Leave no trace. Once again, banner year. We're averaging, sometimes 200 items a day, sometimes more than that. Usually by this time, word gets around, but the last 2 years, it doesn't seem to be doing that way. We're averaging consistently throughout the summer months of our leave no trace items. What you can see, it's up significantly from last year. For June, same thing for July. A lot of items left through July. Up again for leave no trace. We've started, some new campaigns. Our marketing department's helping us out with that. So we're hoping that next year we get a better message out and people learn. We're emptying a 30 cubic yard dumpster about once a week right now. A lot of that gets recycled in different forms. Some of it goes into an annual yard sale. Some of it gets separated from cloth and metal and put into recycling bins. But
What is it, 10,000 tons a year?
of leave no trace?
Yeah.
It could be around that. I think it was 12,000 pounds, so 6 tons last year. 600 tons of garbage last year.
That's what it was, yeah.
What we call wet garbage.
Yeah.
So it's, there's a lot of stuff comes off that beach every day in the form of wet garbage and of leave no trace items. Beach code enforcement. June, we had 1,362 contacts, up significantly from last year, but a lot of that is because we have more people on the beach. Our July contacts, 1,662. So once again, we're out and about, and we're making a lot of contacts with people. On your desk, I have submitted the complete activity report. It's broken down by category, and then as well as by officer and by disposition. So if you've got any questions on that, feel free to email me, or if you got some right now, I can answer.
Brian, the gray area says other disposition. What does that mean?
Yes, sir. Other dispositions is where we don't have the other four, which is compliant, verbal, written, or citation. So tents take up a lot of our time right now.
I got you.
Customary use being the main one.
Right.
So we have an online complaint form. It's being used a lot. And so other disposition is where we either received a complaint and we encountered the item of complaint, but there was nobody there to take a action against. As you know, the typical MO is come down early in the morning, set up your camp, go back, have breakfast, coffee, whatever, and then bring the whole family back. The other part of that is where we actually gained immediate compliance. So we encountered the person, we explained the code, customary use does not allow tents, you're on a piece of privately held beach, and they immediately complied by removing the item. And so we classify that as another.
We all got this, I guess about a week ago. Somebody sent this out to us, and I really read this thing, and it was quite an education.
Appreciate it.
There's quite a bit there, but I think the thing that hit me the hardest was that, or the best part of the report is your interaction of the code enforcement officers with the public.
Yeah.
If you look at written warning or citations as opposed to having an interface that has a good, solution without anybody getting crazy. These graphs really show that you guys are out there, and it isn't like the posse's out there hunting out, violators. It shows a good interface with the public, and I just wanted to commend you on that.
I appreciate it. We understand our role on the beach. We're also constrained by Florida statute on what we can do. We have to give notice of violation, opportunity to cure, and our unwritten mission statement is educate for voluntary compliance.
Well, it shows, and
yeah.
it's,
I appreciate it.
You bet.
Yeah, I just want to say something about that too. Especially the team, the employees you have seem to be some top notch. I don't know how many of us braved 4th of July on the beach, but I attempted that, and I did it. I got out there, and I'm watching this young man in a truck comes up and starts talking to these people, a lot of tents, and obviously on private property. Handled it very well. I think it's Adam Siegler. Is there an Adam Siegler?
Yeah,
Adam.
Yeah.
Incredible job. I mean, those people
Yeah.
are just like, he's a big boy anyway, so I'd probably take him down anyway.
You know?
But anyway, he was very successful, and the people, nobody complained. I've been there before, and I've seen people just kind of they get stirred up.
Yeah.
They were all just as nice as can be. Everybody brought them down. The way he handled it was very good. So
Good.
whatever program you're doing for training is obviously working very well.
We meet once a week, and it's a staff meeting that we go over, our policies, our enforcement actions. My role in that meeting is to promote what I call the general attitude, and it's polite, professional, and courteous, regardless of how you're being treated. And we're lucky. We have a lot of our officers or code enforcement guys are former sheriff's deputies. We have some military. We have some former street side code enforcement people, and we send them through our FACE training program. It teaches techniques of how to deal with people that don't want to be dealt with. I mean, you think about it. Our average interaction down there is we're telling somebody that they're not doing something they're supposed to be doing. And an important stat that I don't show here, but since we've been keeping data in this form, we do a very extensive effort in keeping all this data. 11,000 contacts in 2 years. And I think we've probably received maybe 100 complaints from people that didn't feel like they were treated fairly. And if you go back and look at those cases, they were treated fairly. One thing that is coming up, you'll see at a future meeting, is we're requesting body cameras. We found some that are about $500, and it'll help both parties. People that feel like they're not being treated. If you're on camera, you tend to hold off on the cussing and all that. It will also give us a great indication of how our officers handle very tense situations. So I appreciate that support when it comes before you. Moving forward, these are some of our key things. The bar graph on the left is year to date, and the pie chart is for the month. And so it goes through June and July, and this same information is contained in the handout you have. So, 171 dog contacts for July. For June, we had 140. So dogs still are a big thing. Dogs are popular on the beach. Bonfires, very popular, 267. I think year to date we've had a very significant amount of bonfires. Very popular item on the beach. Our beaches are alive at night. If you get out there in the evening, you'd be surprised how many people are out there enjoying the nightlife. Leave no trace. Vendors, once again, 31. Vendors are doing a much better job this year than the previous years on keeping stuff off the beach. 19 for July. Beach vendor, this is just general stuff. Once again, not very much. Been a good effort on the vendor industry. July contacts 73, up a little bit. Updates, this is our, the code revisions we did, our education awareness campaign. We have revised all of our beach access kiosk signs to include the new revised 2254 and 2260 rules, as well as a separate block of information that contains customary use. And it's a concise message for customary use that gets the basic tenets of that code out there. We had lagged a little bit on that, not knowing where it was going to go in the court of law. We decided it was we need to go ahead and do something, so we did. And it was a very quick change. Communications and marketing department helped us greatly on that, and our local graphic supplier was able to get that change done very quickly. Sorry, I can't see these screens, so I'm going to resort back to my handout. My glasses aren't as good as they used to be, or my eyes aren't. We also have the same messaging on both websites, Visit South Walton and Walton County. We also included in a newly printed beachgoers guide. That's a little different than our visitors guide. It's a little more concise information. We're also doing a social media geographically targeted messaging. That's where you come into our area. We have pinpointed certain zip codes. You come in there, it comes up on your social media feed. And some basic messaging on tents. Tents are a very hot item, as you know, we've restricted the size of tents on public beaches, prohibited them on customary use beaches, and a few other items, the free corridors at the water's edge and the toe of the dune. And so, as like I said, you come into our area, boom, it comes up just like our safety flag messaging does. And so we hope that through all those different areas that we can successfully get this new revised code messaging out, and once again help bring harmony on the beach. The next slide is just a basic wrap up of our beach code enforcement activity for June and July. Once again contained in a better summary in the handout you have. I wanted to highlight our beach code enforcement admin department. Last year, y'all resourced us with 2 code enforcement admin people. We hired 2 young ladies. They've come in and are doing a marvelous job. We've taken over the beach vendor permitting, the special event permitting. They handle all the data, taking it off of our Access database, putting it into our Excel spreadsheets, and they also maintain all the case records. And so they sit right outside my office. So I get to hear their phone conversations on a daily basis. And you'd be surprised at the people that call in and, are disgruntled. But by the time they get off the phone, they're no longer disgruntled. They have received good information, and they're happy again. And more importantly, they're headed in the right direction for compliant behavior. But if you get a chance, you see these 2 ladies, it's Tricia Goff and Melanie Walters. Give them a pat on the back because they do a tremendous job. I have a plan that I use our little white stickers that say South Walton in the place of gold, stars. And so I'll hear them, out there getting really, earful, and I'll walk out and pass out a gold star. I think Tricia's got about 50 of them now. But anyway, so if you get a chance. Beach Ambassador Department, as you know, we hired 2 new beach ambassadors to supplement our 1 and 2 part-times. It worked out good. We still got some work to do in this department, but they focused on the revised codes. We put them static at regional beach accesses to try to intercept people coming out of the parking lot or coming out of the neighborhoods to stop their non-compliant behavior before they got on the beach. Once again, mainly tents, shovels, and stuff like that. So we would put them static at the top of the boardwalks at the large beach accesses in the morning, and then they would roam the beach during the rest of the afternoon. And it seemed to work pretty good. Some of the problem areas where we are having issues with customary use in regards to tents, we beat that back considerably. And some of the people that really like to use our online complaint form, we have made their beaches better. Capital improvement projects, multi-use path, the Grayton Beach to Western Lake, phase 1 was done. I hope everybody's enjoying that. Phase 2, undergoing a redesign. We expect to have that done very soon, and we'll start on the bike path portion of that. Parking lot portion of it's already in, being used a lot. Once again, I hope everybody's had a chance to check that one out. The plans for the design and permitting for 283 to 83, 100% done. We have to go before the BCC to get the RFP for construction approved here in the near future, and we'll take that under construction during the off season. Also, part of that is the wooden bridges repair replacement. As you know, a lot of our bridges that have metal spans have wooden approaches. All those we design and permitting, we're well along on that. We'll go ahead and do the ones in the section where we're doing the new bike path between 283 and 83. The rest of them we'll contract out over in different lots so that we don't affect the bike path completely. NRDA Phase 3, about to wrap these up. Gulfview Heights and Edward Lane were completed a couple of months ago. The new neighborhood beach access at Dune Allen will be open on August 10th. If you get a chance, ride by and see that. We completed the concrete paver connecting sidewalk, and we have some signage put in. Other than that, it's ready to go. And then our canoe kayak launch over on East Mitchell, about 80% complete or so, should be done here in a couple of weeks, and it'll be a nice facility. It's 4 parking spaces. It's kind of what we call a pocket park. It's got a concrete sidewalk that goes back, got a little small picnic area, and then a high-low dock for fishing and canoe kayak launch. So it'll be a great asset of that neighborhood, as well as other people that want to get on that end of the bay. We hope to in the future to connect all of these bayside parks with a canoe kayak trail, something to supplement our forest trails. TDC projects, we have all of our neighborhood beach access and regional beach access under design and permit. The 2016 funded ones are about 90% complete. We hope to get some of those under construction this off season. We've had a hard time with FDEP. Since we were trying to do all these at one time, they considered them a general permit as opposed to a field permit. Good thing about it is we've have surveys of all our property. We'll have construction design plans for all these beach access boardwalks. If they get destroyed in a hurricane, rebuilding them should be a fairly simple task. When I say fairly simple, it won't be as hard as it was this go around. 2017 funded, we just got started on those. We expect it'll take, the same amount of time, 9 to 12 months, and we'll do those in the fall, winter of next year. So that's those projects. Dune Allen Regional Beach Access, we have a intake meeting with the planning department. We did our conceptual design, had it BCC, TDC approved, BCC approved. This will start them off on design development. Once again, we expect it to take a while. We would like to hope to have it open sometime next summer. Reality is it might be towards the end of summer. That's just the nature of design and permitting large projects on the Gulf Coast. Graton Beach Central Parking Area, as you know, we have it in a temporary form. It's being used a lot. Our lower parking area, not so much down there, but we have some lights going in. We're hoping that'll help pick up that use. Of course, as we taper off for the season, we'll see a slowdown in its use. We have the RFP out for structured parking program, and I believe that closes in this week? Tomorrow. And then we'll review and assess that and see how that's going to work. Anyway, so we're kind of sitting on hold on that for right now to see what we want to do long term. 38 parking project. We have completed the Eastern Lake area. Blue Mountain Beach is along pretty well. They're putting in concrete pavers this week and next week. It should be completed in a week or so. We've started at the Gulf Place, 393-338 intersection with the dirt work and underground utilities. And we will be down in the Dune Allen area probably late August, 1st of September. Got delayed a little bit with the rain, but we're moving along on it real well. And those projects will be complete. And it'll be a good look at what can be done in the other areas of 38. So I'd imagine that sometime next year we'll probably take on another assessment and see if we can't find other areas to put in some of this parallel parking and formalize and what I call beautification project for 38. Our maintenance facility renovation moving along, not as quick as I'd like, but That's the nature of it. We expect to have the bid closing in about 2 weeks. We had a few things we had to iron out with some existing conditions that we did not know about. The pole barn is in place and it's working great. Great place to put all our equipment. So appreciate y'all's decision on letting us do this. This will once again open up our office, more office space, formal reception area, lobby area to do transactions for permitting. Right now, we're all kind of cramped up in our existing office space, but it's working. So let's make a vast improvement to our facilities. And so I've got a bunch of other small stuff going on, but it's just basic amenities to our beach, accesses and stuff like that. It's already stuff that's been approved, and we're just going through the procurement process. Coastal Dune Lake sign program is being purchased and all that. So, any questions, comments?
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
As far as the beach vendor, the perpendicular emergency lanes, if you will,
Mhm.
where there, so many setups that are required. Well, we have those, where we comply with those, but then we have our guests that, there's a vacant spot, and they camp out, and then it becomes more congested than what the beach vendors have.
Right.
Does that fall under code enforcement, the property owner, or would that be the fire department, the lifeguards to enforce, keeping that clear? Or we don't
Well,
have a chance?
your case, you have a little bit of a unique situation. Okay, one is you're on a beach that has, yeah. I mean, your beach is a little different. You're on a beach that has an ECL. Okay, right now that ECL I think is approximately 40 feet from the water's edge. All right, so your property, legally stops at that ECL. Since you have the same littoral rights as you did before the beach nourishment, you're allowed to set up down there. From what I call the Rosemary Beach clause, people that have resort communities do not have that same 15 foot at the water's edge. And the argument is that they regulate themselves good enough and it compromises their ability to do business. And so the 15 foot at the water's edge is on public beach. All right. So the answer to your question is, it's really a joint effort. You as landowner need to help regulate that and educate your visitors to your beach that there needs to be a clear corridor to allow people in general to move east and west, but also to allow emergency people to get by there if they need to be. We primarily use the 15-foot corridor at the top of the dune. During the summer season, it's literally impossible for us to maneuver vehicles through the crowded portion of the beach.
And I'm actually talking about the corridor north and south.
I'm sorry. Can you ask a question again? I focused on east and west.
That's okay. So many beach setups, we're required to have a corridor to have emergency access to the water.
Right.
So that north and south corridor,
Yeah.
we're leaving it vacant.
Right.
However, the guests come and they're making it even more congested than what beach vendors would.
Yeah.
I'm not proposing to make it.
That actually is only on public beaches where we have that term and conditions in the what we call a access aisle. Okay, on your beach, your vendor would be expected to establish and maintain that. Okay. You also have a contracted lifeguard there too, right?
Between us, yes.
Right.
Well, I say us, between, say us.
So, I would work with those two people to establish that corridor, somehow educate your visitors. I don't know if it's flyers in their rental agreements, signage that, says it or whatever, but in that case, it would really be up to you as property owner.
And we would be allowed to sign it, which is another, and I'm not trying to make it difficult, I'm just trying to follow the rules. Having signage on the beach, of course, is restricted to the toe of the dune, so.
Correct.
If it would be for safety purposes, would it be all right to have signage?
County Legal Department has determined no, so it would be the toe of the dune, somewhere within your facility.
Okay.
And then I don't know what your attendance, your beach vendor attendance, person is, if it's several people or whatever, but a person getting that message out as people fill in that corridor.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all have, I know you had the beach ambassadors, did you have any volunteers that did this
They did. There was a Walton County, South Walton volunteer beach ambassador group. Laurie Reichenbeck kind of heads up that. And I believe she has about 80 members, and it has worked pretty good. Our beach ambassador lead person partnered with them to make sure that we had a unified message, that they were giving out proper messaging that related to code. And then, of course, we have the other items of beach etiquette that they did a very good job on. Laurie does a wonderful job in keeping stats, data. So I think in the future we'll ask her to come. Maybe our next meeting we'll ask her to come and kind of give a little presentation on that.
That'd be nice. I didn't know if they knew that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they.
I can a little shout out to one of ours in our little community neighborhood access was Elisa Bushi. She was there and she just did a phenomenal job of coordinating traffic. People coming in, they park everywhere over in the Stallworth Lake area, which that's a difficult area.
Very difficult.
I was surprised how well that went. So anyway, a little shout out to her. She did a great job.
Yeah, Lisa's very active in her beach community, and she was on customary use committee, and she sits on our beach management committee as well.
Good to have her.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Good job.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you.
All right. ED.
All right, so just wanted to clarify, the parking RFQ closes on Thursday the 3rd, not tomorrow. I was mistaken on that. So I just wanted to make sure we had the facts straight on that. While we've been conducting the meeting, got an email from the clerk's office on the June numbers, so I thought I'd at least relay those verbally to you. Very good, 10.94% increase, almost 11% increase, $4,604,169. Last year, just for reference, we had $4,176 and $164. So nice increase year over year for June. So we'll move forward and we'll see what the rest of the summer looks like. But if there are any indications of these numbers, I think we'll do well this summer. So Miramar Beach property, we had purchased a piece of property, I guess about 2 months ago, over in Miramar Beach across from the Amalfi Coast condos. It was about 360 feet that we purchased. And the home adjacent to that property came up for sale since we purchased that piece of property. And so we, last month, bought that piece of property. So we added 50 feet of beachfront property to that parcel. So now we have 410 feet of beachfront. This property was 1.5 and the previous purchase was 4.2 million. So we still have about $5 million in the budget for beach purchases. And so we're kind of still looking to see what opportunities there are out there. Seacrest is still something that we're interested in. Unfortunately, we had a great opportunity that a real estate agent bought to me. And literally within the week he bought it to me, it was sold. They had 3 full price offers on the table for the piece of property. So anyway, the hunt continues. Let's see what else. North Walton TDC memo. So we talked about this at the last meeting, and Clay has prepared a memo for your review, and it's in your packets. Clay, do you want to address some of that for the council?
Absolutely, I'd be glad to. I'm not going to read the memo to you. That's certainly to you. I provided you a memorandum. This issue has come up several times during my tenure as counsel for the TDC. We provided opinions on this a number of different times. Short answer is the Attorney General has made very clear what has to happen if one wishes to expand a tourist development taxing district. You're allowed 1 taxing district per county. We have a taxing district. Therefore, we don't get to create a second district. You don't get to have a South District and a North District. What you would do is if the Board of County Commissioners wanted to expand the TDC's taxing area to incorporate something greater than the current sub-county area, which is everything south of the Choctawhatchee Bay. Could be the entire county, could be a portion of it, could be the 331 corridor, could be anything. Could expand it all the way to include the whole county. A referendum would have to be held of the non-taxed portion of the county. The majority of the voting public in the non-taxed area, meaning the south portion of the county that is already taxed, would not vote on it, would have the opportunity to vote and determine to levy that tax. From there, the BCC through the TDC would have to enact a second tourist development plan We'd have one plan that governs the original taxing district, one plan that governs the expanded taxing district. The monies collected in each cannot be commingled or used across those taxing plans, or effectively the taxing border in that situation. You would not have two TDCs. You would remain as one TDC. The only structural change to the 9-member TDC council is that the statute provides that the most populous municipality in the county or sub-county taxing district in which the tax is levied is entitled to one of the 2 elected official seats. If the taxing district were to expand to take in any part of Walton County in which there's a municipality, we do not have a municipality south of the bay, then that largest municipality in the area then encompassed would be entitled to 1 seat. Presently, if you were to assume it took in all of Walton County, the largest municipality is Defeniak Springs. So one of the elected officials in Defeniak Springs would take one of the elected official seats on this council. In fact, you've already had that adopted in the policy and procedures when we addressed how to define the seats of the council that's come before you before. We, in fact, embedded that in there along with the provision that to the extent there is no municipality south of the bay and the taxing district does not include an area with a municipality, then the seats will be awarded to South Walton Fire District and the South Walton Mosquito Control District as the 2 elected bodies for which the entire South County District votes on. So that's how it is now. That would change as a matter of statutory function. The other issue I addressed in there, the questions come up, well, what about the staff? And as you note in there, and you've heard me say many times before, the TDC is what we colloquially refer to as that entire operation over there. The TDC, for a statutory purpose, is you, the 9-member council, and nothing else. But under subsection 9 of 125.0104 Florida statute, county tourism promotion agencies are created. That's how counties can have DMOs and the variety of other things, CVBs, basically any other promotion agency function, whether they collect money or not. Most have started out with the same model we have, where you end up with the TDC basically being one combined entity. And so that's what we call it. Important to understand that while the council doesn't change, you would not be able to use South End money and funding of that staff to fund the North Walton section of the county. Could cost share and allocation be done? The short answer is there is no strict prohibition against that, but we would have to be very, very cautious to make sure we have proper share allocation of time and salary between those 2 districts to make sure that if, say, the executive director of the TDC that we have now is performing the role in both, that his time is adequately compensated by each, and you're not commingling, and South End's not paying for part of his duties north of the bay. North of the bay is not bolstering his salary when he's spending 90% of his time south of the bay and they're paying 20% of his total salary. That would likewise be improper. So we'd have to be very careful about that, or alternatively, you have to create an entirely separate tourism promotion agency to serve that purpose. That would be part of that tourist development plan you would define that could happen. So that's been laid out there for you in the memo. I've also attached the 1996 Attorney General opinion that was provided over in Bay County that outlined how they had to follow the process of not creating 2 districts, but rather expanding their district into a greater area. But I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Likewise, a lot to take in. You may well have questions not encompassed by that memorandum, which just basically states what we'd have to do to go about it. Please, if you don't have them today and you read through it, call me, shoot me an email, I'll set up a time to talk to you. This is something that I have addressed for 3 executive directors for the TDC now in my tenure and 2 interim directors, I believe, at this point. So it's come up multiple times in the last decade. It's been looked at time and again. I'll be able to get you an answer. If I haven't already looked at it and written something on it or opined to somebody about it, I'll find you the answer. But I'll stand for any questions you want at this time.
You're good.
Okay.
Clay, maybe the
Sure.
obvious question to me is, do we feel like there's a lot of potential TDT dollars being left on the table at this point?
From North Walton,
Yeah.
Mr. Toos and I have looked at it. We don't have a great method of tracking that because they don't report the way everybody else does. The last data set we looked at showed somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 in gross receipts north of the Choctawhatchee Bay for lodging that would perceivably qualify for short-term rentals and be subject to a TDT. There is a fair question whether or not the North Walton area would be able to start out at a full 4% or 3%. I would advise that if we're doing a cost analysis, we would start out 1 cent less, because there is 1 cent that is not typically able to be levied immediately upon an action. While the AG's never opined what happens when you expand the district, I think that's the safest approach. 3%, put you around $3,000, or put around $9,000. 4% puts you up to around $12,000. That's about what kind of revenue you're going to see off of the current taxing district at this time. I believe from the prior conversations I've had with persons inquiring, the question is not for present. The question is, should we go ahead and put this in place now for if Mossy Head develops more, the 331 corridor develops more through the Freeport area and the Funiac area, are we now prepared to capture that growth and be able to market those areas? That's a separate question than is it viable now. The answer is right now we're funding approximately 5 times more money to North End events when we put out $50,000 in events and sponsorship marketing grants that we do to that area than what they'd be able to generate themselves. And that's without even taking into account them paying for any staff for overhead time. So frankly, today, I've yet to see any numbers that support that it is a viable tax revenue generator. We were approached under, Mr. Bagby's still here, we were approached by the city of Defuniak about this in 2013, I believe it was, Mr. Bagby, and we met with the city. City manager at that time had been presented some information by a member of the city council that suggested there was a large sum of taxable revenue to be collected. No data that the city of Defuniak has actually been able to substantiate, and I say full disclosure, I do represent the city of Defuniak as well, nor that we were able to look at from the TDC level in those meetings, ever came close to what that projection was, and whether that was a future projection based on growth models, potential real estate development trends, potential hotels coming online. We don't know, but we know that after everybody sat down and looked at them, the general consensus, and I believe it's been addressed at the North Walton Advisory Council we have that serves as a subcommittee to you, so far it appears that all the cities have been relatively comfortable with the idea that they're getting more money now than creating a taxing district would. But nevertheless, it is something that the Board of County Commissioners, members of that, have asked us about, that the cities do continue to inquire about what would be the opportunity or process. So frankly, it's one of those things that's come up enough that when Jay asked me about it again, I said, would it be better for me to go ahead and give a memorandum to this current council so that the old one that was given out back in 2014 approximately, this group wasn't here, I can update you on that. And so that's why I wanted to give you that briefing here and let you know. It's legally able to be done. The question is that something that the board wants to pursue and ultimately the BCC wants to pursue to do that? It's certainly a forward-looking exercise. As it is today, there are some big financial hurdles involved with making that viable. And I would say that my legal opinion has been pretty consistent now for probably since 2011 when I first looked at this, 2010. If we create those separate plans and expand the district, I believe our current funding of resources that we do that goes across the bay from revenues collected south of the bay will have to stop. I do not believe that there's a viable way of saying we're not commingling the funds at that point in time. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of the structure of what we have set up. Now, I suspect that if we ever go this route, and that will be a question that's raised again and again, my answer is I have yet to see a legislative finding or a suggestion of how we could do that and withstand a challenge from a bed tax collector that says you're spending money that should solely be used south of the bay, north of the bay. Even though we're legally able to do it now because the statute provides for us to spend money in the state, so we can spend money anywhere, to promote tourism in this state or in our local area. So we can spend money that promotes the state of Florida generally, not just South Walton. Now, why one would do that is a good question. I think we can all probably envision certain destinations in the state of Florida, perhaps private entities in those destinations that would like that broader usage and probably lobbied to have it put in there. Again, not for me to speculate exactly how that works, but there's certainly some entities that benefit from being able to market broader than their own area when they bring in the bulk of a bed tax somewhere. The point being, we can do it now. Could we do it with having to manage that plan? Not easily. And I haven't seen a legal justification for doing it, so I would caution us to separate them until we actually have some affirmation that we can.
I would just think a few things about as far as moving forward. One, we should do some type of a cost analysis on what type of dollars we're looking at collecting on the north end if we do collect the tax. And then whatever that dollar amount is that we project, then what can be done with those funds. And then if we did want to keep it where the Visit South Walton team, administer those funds, what would it take to do that? Because then we'd need to come up with some type of cost allocation. So there's lots of things that we need to do there, but I think first we need to find out what kind of dollars we're talking about from the tax. Two, we need to talk to the lodging folks up there, whether they're hotels or RV parks, and see if there's an interest from them. We haven't done that yet, and so not to my knowledge, at least since I've been here, we haven't. So talk to those folks to see if there's an interest there, and then also talk to the municipalities, Freeport, Defuniak, and see where their interests lie, and then kind of put all that together in some type of a report and see what the potential is and how we want to tackle it.
But at the same time, any monies that we now spend north of the county, we would have to cut that off if they.
Correct.
And so if that's negatively
right.
impacted. Then
and that's what we need to examine.
Right. And that makes no sense to anybody.
Right.
So I think that may be the first step is present that information and say, you want to lose out on what we're giving you now just to generate, $6,000 or $12,000 a year that you can provide, and then we cut off all of our monies that we spend. So I think that's a good way to go at it.
Okay, we'll work on that, and we'll bring that forward to you. Probably won't be the next meeting. That might take a couple of meeting cycles. So
I don't think it's a real high
priority. It's not. We're just moving on it. So
it's a good update, and thank you, Clay.
Yeah,
thank you all both. Yeah.
Great. And then let's see, the transportation letter to the Attorney General. Legal counsel prepared a letter for the chair to sign. This is basically when we were reviewing the proposals that we had received for marketing for the Sunshine Shuttle and the 654 limo. We had talked about, well, what are the opportunities for us just to do this on our own and contract with a company to provide the service. So this letter will be asking the Attorney General their opinion on that, because when we had written a letter, I don't know, about 2 years ago, Clay?
Longer than that at this point. It's been 2013, I believe. It was shortly after the 2012 election, because I believe it was addressed to the Honorable Bill Chapman at the time. He had just taken office in 2012.
Okay, so in that letter, we asked specifically about advertising on these vehicles. So now we're going to ask about funding, just so we kind of know where we are. We already know where we are on the marketing side, so where are we on this, the funding, the operation of it? So hopefully we can get some clarification on that and guide us, on how we make our future plans.
All I'll need from the board, the county attorney's office has approved that the chairman of the TDC can sign. It was drafted with a signature block left blank to insert the BCC chairman. The county attorney advised Mr. Tusa this morning that she was fine if the TDC sent the letter directly, since it pertained directly to our expenditures. So looking back into prior minutes when this was requested of us, whether it is a typo in the minutes, I haven't listened to the audio in full candor, it says to prepare an opinion letter to the Auditor General. Again, that may have been a minute typo, may not have been. I just ask that we have full authority that the board pass a motion to allow the chairman to transmit that letter to the Attorney General of the state of Florida seeking that opinion.
I think that's correct. It was the Attorney General that we...
Okay, so you want to make a motion? We need to make a motion for that?
Please.
All right.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll have that here in signature format for you this week on TD, and they can print it on TDC letterhead. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And that wraps it up for us. Any questions of me?
I just got one comment. Back to the master plan. One thing I failed to mention, and I want to ask you about, is that when we did the scoring and looked at those proposals, you made the suggestion that the purchasing department in Defuniak, that we change that contract from 14 months to 13 months so that it would coincide with our fiscal year.
Correct.
And having said that, are you gonna go back to Saint Germain and take a month off of their proposed cost? Because the cost was for a 14-month proposal, and we cut it back to a 13-month proposal.
It's really based on the quantity of research they're doing, basically on projects,
Okay.
not necessarily on them being paid like on a per month basis, if you will, like if it were a retainer. It's based on projects. So the number of projects isn't going to change.
I got
So whether, let's just say we had 12 projects proposed in 14 months, whether it's 13 or even 12 months, it's still going to be those same number of projects. That's not going to change.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
because I didn't want somebody to come back later and say, hey, y'all met with the purchasing department in Defuniak and changed it to coincide with the fiscal year,
Right.
but you didn't change the
Right.
cost.
And I did check with legal on that, and they were fine with it. As long as, like I just said, if it's on projects and not time, then they were okay.
That answers my question. I'm totally comfortable with it.
Great.
Any other comments from the council? Additions? I've got one. And some of y'all already know this, one of my pet peeves is garbage. You know, we do such a great job, and we are so diligent about making sure our beaches are clean, and, you know, we pick up the garbage and all. I don't know how we get to our bed tax collectors, but some of them, you know, hire these contractors to pick up the garbage on Saturdays or Sundays, whenever it may be, Monday. And we've been having, I've been seeing these cages on the back of, you know, trucks, and here these bags are just flowing out the top. Is somehow or another we've got to get maybe a net policy or something like that, because, you know, you drive along 98 and you see some of the remnants of whatever's left of those bags of trash. It's just something we try so hard to keep this county in such immaculate shape, especially on our beaches, which they enjoy, but it also shows up on our highways out here, and that doesn't look good. Matter of fact, today, I don't know who's mowing the 98 medians now, but you know what? I think they forgot to pick up the trash. They're just mowing it all. So, you know, we try so hard for this county, especially down here on the southern end, to look so pristine, and then we just allow this to happen. So I don't know where we go with this, Jay, but I'm just...
Let me talk to admin and see if where we can take it from there. But let me talk to them and see what we can do. If it's something you know, beyond like a waste management, how we can tackle that. If there's some type of a ordinance or what have you. But let me work on it from that end, and I'll be happy to get back with you on that.
Jay, can I add a comment to that? I did see one of the newer trucks or trailers Saturday, and it does have a cage on the, or metal on the top.
Yeah.
But we've never gotten to the issue that I have complained about for years and years and years. We pay 1% sales tax, additional 1% sales tax for garbage collection. And we put guests in $12,000 to $20,000 homes per week. And they show up on Saturday, and there's the prior renter's garbage all piled up. And these private contractors are picking that stuff up to keep that $20,000 guest happy. What we need is in the summertime is we need 3-day-a-week pickup. The county has not gone along with that. So what owners and rental companies have done, they're paying these private contractors to pick the garbage up out of these neighborhoods. So yeah, a few bags are end up on 98, but at least they're not sitting in front of all of these houses. So there's a larger problem that's never been addressed, and I'm happy. I'm one that's been complaining about it for years. So the real issue is we need more garbage pickup in the summertime as opposed to we need to put nets on. And I agree, if you're gonna pick up garbage, you need to put a net on top so it doesn't fly all over the place.
At least that for starters, but I agree with you. There is an issue, an underlying issue. Maybe we can tackle that with the county. And
Yeah, I'll initiate that process, and I'll let you know. And then in regards to Highway 98, you had mentioned you know, some garbage, and I will say we have a new vendor who is maintaining that, because before it was the state that was maintaining that. So as part of the new deal with median and right-of-way maintenance, the county and the TDC have partnered in maintaining the majority of Highway 98 maintenance. Over on the eastern side of Point Washington State Forest, we're not maintaining over there. So, but the new vendor is getting up to speed. The grass is very high right now, so he's getting that cut down, and then so he's dealing with all that. But he's working on it. So hopefully, as he can keep it lower and cut it more often, we won't have all that issue with garbage being in that thick, heavy grass.
Normally what they do is they have people walking or
Right.
on
ATVs.
ATVs picking the
Right.
garbage up before the grass is cut.
Right.
Yeah, it just, you know, and you can tell the difference. I
Yeah.
mean, you're not seeing the big tractors, just a little tractor out there cruising along, and it's like, my gosh, what's going on here? Budget
Yeah.
cuts.
So, but I know Josh meets with them regularly, so I'll make sure that I mention that to Josh, and in one of his meetings, he can bring that up to them.
Okay, any other comments from the board? If not, go ahead.
I think our messaging to Visit Florida is very important. We made a decision today, and I'm in support of that decision. But I think they need to know that we're concerned about the reporting requirements as a TDC to Visit Florida that requires more definition and more detail, so we understand what those requirements are and that it's palatable for us. But in general, we're in support of all that Visit Florida does for us in this great state. So I don't know how we all feel about it, but a blanket, a very succinct no to the relationship is not the message I would want us to send to Visit Florida.
Well, and I agree. And in my letter to the CEO, I basically stated that we do value their partnership and we do place value on it. And I just told them where our concerns were. So I can certainly reiterate that again once more, because I did tell him that I was bringing this before the council and that my decision wasn't the ultimate decision. So I will certainly get back in touch with him and relay that information to him.
You sent us a copy of that first letter.
I did.
I thought that the way you wrote it was excellent. You left the door wide open and you were very courteous about it.
That's a good point Mark made, so.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely follow back up with him and I'll reiterate that.
Okay. We're not abandoning them, we're just being cautious. Any public comment? If there's no public comment, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
We got a motion, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned, thank you.
Have a good one.
See you tomorrow. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
See you, partner.